Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Shadow and Sun Show. Welcome to the Friday edition of Second Breakfast. How you guys doing out there? Ready for the weekend? Oh my gosh, summer is officially in full swing. It's already 85, almost 90 degrees. Let's see exactly. It's crazy out there. It is toasty. What does it say here on my phone? 87 degrees already. Wow. Yeah, it's that's the high desert for you. A week ago, it was 60, 70, jackets, sweaters, all that sort of thing. And now we're looking at, blazing heat. And let's see, what's it going to be today? We're going to hit 91 today, and then it's going to drop down back to the 80s, which is much nicer because I am going to try and drag the family to our Sunday swap meet after church. If everything works out, we'll see. We haven't been in a while. What's up, Shellback? Had a good time drinking with some buddies. Now I'm cooling off before heading to bed. Well, actually, had a cold day for being June. Uh, yeah, our good friend James L. over in the land that makes us wonder. It's like 46 degrees there. Just a weird planet we live on. But if it wasn't the way it is, we wouldn't be here. We are uniquely blessed in the galaxy, in the cosmos. Who knows? I don't know. Been thinking about honestly about maybe running another D&D game, doing some things. Besides the high seas adventure, there's a few things that I never got to do. Um, Running a game because, like I was talking about yesterday, after after about 10 years of playing AD&D, maybe more, we started playing Palladium for the next like 15 years. Intermittent Traveler and Chill and Villains and Vigilantes and other games. A lot of those games we played during the AD&D years. There's a few things that I never got to do. So I've been thinking a little bit about that, but I still really want to work on my space opera game, my Venture Brothers game. I've got an Invasion Earth idea. After the aliens come and mess shit up, a game like that. Of course, I'm also working on my. It's going to hopefully be a collaborative project with Miguel and Sylvia and I for, excuse me, End of Innocence. Dean is in the green room. Let's let him on in. How you doing, man?
I'm
What's
doing all
happening?
right.
Glad to hear it, man. You sound like you're in a really good mood. That's always awesome.
Yes. Nothing bad had happened today. Let's just put it like that.
Always stay positive. The more positive you are, the more positive it gets. I know I sound like a self help book, but I've been doing a lot of that lately.
Oh
A
yeah,
lot of
yeah. What do you call it? What you put your attention on is what you get more of.
yes, yes,
Unless you're like really unlucky and keep getting in accidents. But I mean, like,
and then you need to see an exorcist and get that stuff sorted out.
yeah.
Squirrel, what's happening, man? Hey, you want to join? You know where the link is. Come on in. I've been really neglectful on my phone calls lately, and I need to fix that. I had the weirdest freaking dream the other night, and I got to call my aunt. Not that I'm worried that she's not okay because she's going to outlive us all, and she's up there. She's my aunt, so she's
Yeah.
older. Vic Dakota, welcome, man. Uh, but I had this dream that I'm adopted, and she'd be the only one who would know. I don't think I am, but uh, I gotta ask one last time. Is there any chance that I'm adopted? That would make so much sense. But at the same time, I really hope I'm not because uh, then who knows? My Everything is, like, oh,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it
I
was just,
have so many of the similar health problem as my mother's side of my family to be adopted. So I think I'm pretty safe there.
well, when I did the combat wheelchair video, I think that got things rolling. I was thinking about my parents, which I really don't do, you know, as much as most people, because it was so long ago that they passed that, I've just had to move on and do other things. But
Yeah,
it was one of those dreams that lately, for the past, I don't know, 5, 10 years or so, they've really been vivid, and I can remember them. Like I can remember it. It was like, days ago, and I can still, no link in the chat because you're not on my Discord, man. You flagrant flaker. You should join my Discord. I think you would appreciate a lot of the memes at the very least, but I'll put it in for you. You better be wearing pants, or if you're not, keep the camera above the belly button. Just saying. Um, but I don't know if you saw my video this morning. It was actually inspired by Sean from Mage's Musings, because uh, he said he's never run or something along those lines of like a high level game, or, none of his players or characters or whatever get above a certain level. And I'm
yeah.
like, I know that's common to a point, but on the other hand, they're, since at least 2E or 3E or whatever, getting to high level has been actually, I think, easier for players. I don't know. Has that been your experience?
Well, I don't have much experience with like running older editions, but yes,
Mhm.
it is basically you can adjust your campaign, what you call it, to be where it's easier to get high level without having just to draw without having X during XP at people.
Okay. How about you, Vic?
What are
Highest
we
level.
talking about now?
Sorry, what
The
highest level? 16 in a 20 level scale is what
okay.
my highest.
Highest level character. What's your highest level character first, Vic?
Breon, Dark Elf, from when I started playing game, when I started gaming. He survived this long.
Okay. What level?
25th,
Ooh, AD&D.
AD&D.
All right, that's actually pretty respectable. That's yeah, cleric. I'm
Once
guessing.
he got there, I said, no more.
Oh, okay, okay.
There's not much that survives a 25 D6. You know what I mean? You're dropping a
Fireball.
fireball.
Yes, I know. I that was one of the things that I really, not just me, but my players were like not having it. In 2E, where your fireballs and lightning bolts capped out at 10th. I'm like, that doesn't explain how they got there. The whole
Right.
world was, among other things. But they really enjoyed that, especially for Magic users, dropping 25d6. It makes a considerably different noise than dropping just 10d6.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Well,
just
at 25 D6 and you're gating into someplace to go for combat, it's like, oh, I'm going to gate into hell and drop a 25 D6 and see what happens here. I need some experience points. Gate in, drop a 25 D6, take out a lightning bolt, do a 25 D8. Yeah, what the hell? A couple spells here and there, pick up a, you know, 20,000 experience points really quick and gate out. And, you know,
real quick. Shellback. That sounds glorious. Top Secret SI, one of the greatest games ever, in the way of modern contemporary stuff, and the GM's book I talk about all the time because it was the best uh, book on how to role play, and all the things you shouldn't do as a DM. I really recommend, if you guys haven't read it, go find it, the PDF on the high seas. It's free. It's no big deal, but it talks about all the things that we talk about when it comes to role playing before anybody else did. All the other games, were essentially, more adventure games than role playing games, and
Yeah,
it really like, you know codified everything that would come later. Paul says never kept track of D&D characters. I think his current character in my mutated rules AD&D on Sunday is around 15th level. The campaign should be winding down at some point. I got a game with 8 to like 13th level AD&D characters, and uh, I don't think it's winding down anytime soon. It's the top secret SI Administrator's Guide. It really was ahead of its time, and everybody, universally agrees on like everything that's in there when it comes to uh, hardcore role playing. Like 4D if you want, but before those terms and staying in character and you know if you've ever seen like any of Seth Korkowski's Dungeon Master Sins, they were all in that book before he made those videos. Decades before he made those videos. I'm going to write it down in the chat so that anybody who wants to check it out.
But yeah, that does sound interesting because so I remember several stories from Gen X people who didn't like start with the basic or like the rules companion or so forth. Like they just heard of role playing and then they bought like a system. Like whatever we say about his politics, we can ignore that for now. But like Justin Alexander, his first experience was like buying a Batman RPG, and it apparently didn't. It apparently assumed it knew how you played a tabletop RPG. So
I made a decision just yesterday when I write one of the games I'm going to work on, which is an actual AD&D supplement. I know, like, who cares, right? I'm going to do
yeah,
it anyways. But the first thing I'm going to go in the very first like chapter. I will not tell you how to role play or what dice or what that big long chapter that every game seems to need. Like you've never read a D&D book before, you know what I mean, or a role-playing game book, tells you all the how to roll percentile and what role-playing is. I'm like, I'm going to write in there, I'm not doing that, because if you don't know that, you've got the wrong book. Hand this off to somebody else, because uh I was reading, I forget what I was reading, and I had to just skip that. I'm just like, yeah, there's nothing you're going to tell me that I haven't read literally like 100 times before by 100 different authors. So there'll be none of that. But um, back to what got me on this is that Sean plays hardcore AD&D by the book, and I think that's when it dropped off the lethality and the ease of death. What's up, Bo? That what happened to your camera, man? Where
I'll have my camera on in a minute.
I'm just fucking.
No, I'll have it on in a minute.
I'm just messing with
I'm making the noise down, maybe.
but
Just kidding.
like
I'm not.
Up until AD&D, the game was lethal. It was meant to be lethal. It was perceived as lethal. It was lethal, but then 2E came around, and it got a lot less like that. It was a lot easier to survive in certain ways. Maybe I'm misconstruing that because I didn't play a lot of 2E. No problem, Shellback. Get some sleep. Read that book. Come back to us Monday. I need a 10-page report. And let me know what you think, because it really is like it's so helpful, and it will change. Maybe the way you run your games, and maybe even play. I don't know. It was so weird when I reread it. Like I want to say last year when I was doing the whole thing on espionage games, and I'm like, where has this been all my life? Look at all these things that we just talk about all the time now when it comes to the in character role playing stuff. That you can just go here. This is all you need. Even Shauner, was like, hey, did you ever read this? Maybe he wrote it. I'll have to double check, because it was spot on. It just, but I keep thinking, if just about everybody here has been able to talk about a character that's like 10th level, except Bo, of course. But everybody in the video this morning is like they all had these epic stories of these epic. It's only 96 pages. Okay, you found it. Awesome. Um, and I'm like, well, back in the day, no problem. 10th level, 15th level, 23rd level, 25th level. Okay, well, what happened? I mean, it got easier to get there, but less likely to happen. Whereas, like with Vic, you were playing in the freaking most deadly era of the hobby, right?
Yeah, I played all those games. I played Boot Hill, Gamma World, Top Secret,
Same here. Got them all right
ABB.
here. Hey,
Yeah,
someone even bequeathed me a copy of Dawn Patrol. It's not a role playing game, but thanks.
yeah.
Um, no, because I mentioned I wanted it for the collection. It's not a role playing game. It's
Well,
fun. It
Don
looks like a
Patrol
lot of
is
fun.
my car. I mean, Jesus, he
Mhm.
was playing in those games in that time.
And if it was harder to get there back in the old days, what changed? Was it our ability to play long games? Was it
No,
our was it growing
no.
up life?
It was the little moms that were sitting there going, "Why are you killing all that stuff? Don't you think that's wrong?
Um,
Here's your
I
participation
did factor
trophy."
in I did factor in the Lorraine era and the moms against Dungeons and Dragons and all the satanic panic and stuff, but that shouldn't have made it you know easier to die when they changed all that. It should, I mean, it didn't, but there came a point, I don't know when, where games don't last as long and campaigns don't last as long and players don't play the same character as long. Is it like maybe because of video games you could just go do that instead? You
Oh,
know?
Uh,
you're a huge part
also
of
this,
that.
also that, yeah.
You got video games and you got these, you got the phones, you got people sitting on their stupid phones the whole time while you're gaming.
Mhm.
That's one of the things that annoys the living H out of me is when a player's sitting there going
Mhm.
on my game and I'm just like, you're not paying attention. If you don't pay attention, guess what? Bad things
You,
happen.
you,
You know what I mean?
yeah. You accidentally triggered a trap because you weren't paying attention. Oh my god! Yeah, no, shut up. You take 18 points of damage. Suck it up.
Suck it up,
Right?
Buttercup.
Squirrel says, I definitely say the length of games definitely factors in because, we had the luxury of time. We could
attention
play
span,
for hours.
attention span is gone because they're so distracted by everything else around them. When we had our games, there's no TV in the room. You didn't have it was you had the basement. We're in our basements, man. There's a
Mhm.
table, some chairs, maybe. You're
What
lucky
about
if it's
music?
carpeted, and you're sort of like on Stranger Things. They had the basement. There's no TV. There's nothing down there. There's nothing to distract you. It was the game. You're into the
Well,
game.
that other than music, because we always had music.
Right.
But I think literally the time, the era where there was nothing like D&D. There literally was nothing like it for this period of time in the beginning where the most exciting thing you could do, mentally was D&D. I mean, you can go out and play with your friends and have, rock fights and make believe, etc. But here everybody was focused at the table, like eyes glued to the map or whatever was on the table, the die rolls,
You're
listening.
making you're
So
making your
Shadow
own
here is how
history.
just how much there is nothing like D&D. Some of the very original video games of like RPGs and so forth, Ultima and Wizardry, were literally based off of D&D.
Oh, absolutely.
Go ahead,
Absolutely.
Vic.
So yeah, I mean I mean look at it. Look at it this way. You're making your own movie, your own TV show there. Your height of your imagination is that
Hmm.
if you look at movies now, look at movies. They're rehashing everything we had in the 70s and 80s, and this is
Hmm.
from our fertile minds. And before that, they're trying to rehash all those movies, bringing them forward. They're making part two or they're redoing the movie and stuff like that. There's
Hmm.
nothing really original anymore. I mean, unless you're,
Well,
I mean,
I mean, Wonder Woman's a dude now.
Ugh.
Nobody wants that. No, literally nobody wants that.
Well, I
But
know.
I digress.
Well,
Yeah, it
here's a
does
prime
seem like
example of not wanting that. I was reading the financial news today. Victoria's Secret went and did the old, oh, we're gonna have dudes in Victoria's Secret underwear and all that stuff. They're doing that thing. Well, they dropped all that, and guess what happened? Their stock rose 50 something percent. Hello.
Mhm. Yeah. The pendulum is swinging, just the other way now, I guess, which makes sense if you want to make money. If you want to, promote other things, then you do other things. I think ultimately, the bottom line is the bottom line. You want to make money? Okay, cool. This is what you do. You do the things that work. You do the things that the majority wants, and that appeals to the common, normal, average, everyday average.
How about you
Man
just
or
not
woman.
cater to the 1% or the 10% or whatever? You're gonna cater to the 90% or the 80%. That
Mhm.
20%, that isn't gonna make up for the money that the 80% is gonna pay you. You know what I mean?
It's just, you're right. It's absolutely simple math. But back to the uh, you
And
know,
Yeah,
that's
I
what
thought
I'm
we were
saying.
talking about role playing games.
yeah, right,
That's
right. Well, back to that. Like, Bo,
Yeah,
you've got a
yeah.
very
Well, I don't want to have the old man yells at cloud show because if we're gonna have the old man yells at cloud show, I'm just gonna duck out at that. I want to be positive, and the point that you drove me to this morning in the video, Shadow. If you can't change the game, change yourself. And I don't think that we need to have new games, to have new experiences. Like I want to play an old school role playing game, and I want to play it honestly, without dice fudging, without any kind of cheating. Just sit down, and if my character dies, big. That's why I said my highest level character ever is second level. Why? Because I have changed. I'm a different person now than I was
absolutely. I
25 years
agree
ago,
on that.
and I am ready to sit down and play a serious, fun, old school role playing game without any bullshit or shenanigans. And let's just play. That's what I said. It's second level. Let's go right now. I
Well,
don't.
that's see, as DM, I'm trying to figure out. Like in the last 5 years, I've been in more than 20 different games, campaigns, if you will, and every one of them has ended way before I wanted them to end. One ended, I'll admittedly say, ended because it had to, because we worked ourselves into an untenable corner that literally said we had to end this particular campaign because we kind of screwed up. We had a lot of fun. We didn't die, but and it had to end. Okay, we moved on, and we've been having a lot of fun since then. But if I'm going to go and get into a new game as a player or as a DM, especially as a player, I mean a DM right now, if I'm going to go to the effort of writing, up a world and doing all the things, what's up off grid that need to be done as a GM, and not just randomly roll everything. In which case, you don't need me there. You can go do that on your own. You can literally play that solo and get that exact experience. I need to find out what are the flaws in either my style or my way of thinking, or bringing together the wrong people. There are a whole lot of things that can torpedo a game, and I kind of really don't have a lot of time left to fool around with getting the wrong people together or trying to run the wrong game or whatever. So if I want to run a game and I want it to be fulfilling for me, that means, right off the bat, like I need to know that these people want to be there like 2 to 5 years from now, if possible, barring unforeseen circumstances. How do we make that the most likely to happen? Because I've started some games and I'm like, this is going to go forever, and it didn't. And is that because of me or them, or just couples of them, or one of them, or three of them, or what is the flaw? What is that little princess and the pea, one little grain that's going to freaking make it all come crashing down? And I'm trying to eliminate whatever those factors are through discussion with old people, new people, uh,
Well, that's an interesting thing. You talked about the difference between. I think that again, the big difference between old people and young people is the change, and it's a cultural shift in what I call the appendix N. Right, your appendix N is not the same as my kid's appendix N. And if you want to run an RPG for kids, it's got to be drastically different than an RPG that you run for grown-ups or people from Gen Xers, because you look at like Beowulf, right? Beowulf dies at the end of the book, right? Kids today, their appendix N is Dragon Ball Z,
Harry Potter,
the last Harry Potter. Harry Potter is different because people actually did die in Harry Potter, but nobody dies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so why don't people die? Because people don't die in these pop culture shows now. It's their culture is different, and you can't blame the kids for that. You can't do the old man yells at cloud thing and say these kids today don't get it. Well, it's a cultural shift.
I'm really not factoring in younger folks in this entire thing. Like helping my son run a game. I know those things, so I help him with those things. But for my personal gaming experience and pleasure, I'm always talking to you guys and folks in our circles. 40-ish plus years old, are familiar with all the old tropes, all the old, like you said, Appendix N, things like that, and so I don't have to worry about that. If I make an Elric joke, can't think of one, but
I won't get it.
Right, but if I make a an actual Hobbit joke or a reference,
and might get it.
Then we have a lot of common points of where our interests intersect, and that is part of it. Bloodworth. We used to have, like I said earlier, the luxury of being able to play whenever we want for as long as we want, with no real commitments elsewhere other than school or family things. But we still, okay, that was today. But then the very next day, unless you're on like vacation and you're going to San Cristobal or something, you had the whole summer, you had the whole afternoon, the whole week, the whole weekend. As grown-ups, we don't have any of that. We have got bills, and more bills to take care of and do all the things that grown-ups do. But when we do, just say, hey, I want to play some D&D. I want to play some, Gamma World. And we get some people together and we say, hey, we're going to play this campaign until the wheels fall off, right? That doesn't happen. The wheels fall off. It still suffers from the 6 to 8 sessions and we're done. Sorry, I'm gonna have to bow out. Something happened, or I'm not digging it. I'm not feeling it. This is what I thought it was gonna be. Back then, you never dropped out of a game. You might have got kicked out of the game because you were the problem player, but you never quit a game back in the day. You just didn't. This was the thing. Everybody would be like, well, what do you mean you're not playing anymore? Unless, your mommy and daddy said you couldn't play no more because it was, satanic panic era. Otherwise, they didn't care. It's like, you got books out, you got pencils and paper. You must be learning or doing something educational. So fine, just, keep the noise down, and we better not smell any weed coming out of the basement,
my parents knew exactly where I was. Where is he? Call Paul's house. Paul's mom had answered. Okay, they're in the basement. Okay, they didn't care after that. As long as they knew where we were. I mean,
Offgrid says during high school summer break, we played every day until rushed through chores. Then on his bike to his friend's house, playing after lunch break. Exactly, we had that luxury. We don't have that luxury anymore. So taking that factor into mind, okay, well, we can only play on, Thursday night, just for example. Okay, we're going to play on Thursday night from X to X. Okay, from this time to that time, be there or whatever. Okay, you got your people show up, but then slowly, life creeps in and player X, hey, I can't make it, for the next 3 sessions, which turns into ever. Sorry, I'm dropping out. I got other stuff or whatever, and obviously, responsibilities in real life got to come first. And if that shit happens, no one's going to blame you. But, if you're kind of, you know, if at the beginning of the game, everybody, said, yeah, I bet he's going to be the first person to drop out, then, you kind of don't invite them back for anything because that's just going to be the way it is. But let's say you got 5 or 6 people that are like as pumped as you are to play this game, and let's go. We're there. They're early even. They got their characters, they got everything ready. Then what?
Maybe in this case, in this particular instance, the 4D crowd is right. If you know you're only going to play for a limited amount of time, you have to power pack your role playing experience. You have to make those 2 hours just serious, head down, throw dice.
That I'm glad you brought that up.
No fucking around, just role playing.
But here's
Well,
the
it's also
thing:
timing too,
the
though. Right now.
definition of role playing is not synonymous everywhere.
Well, I don't care about the definition of role playing. I'm talking about being serious about the game when you're gaming.
But Bo, you're a perfect example. Your idea of role playing is very different from every other player you and I played with. You are a 4D guy through and through. You're it's all about role playing. If we don't even get into combat, you're fine with that because you were in character the whole time. And as a group,
I'm a 3D guy.
But everybody else, or most people I've met over the years on the tube of views, etc., they think role playing is, kick in the door, kill the monster, take their stuff, and move on. And that to them is all they want, and that's all they care about. Everything else, talking to the shopkeeper, do that somewhere else. We don't want. You're wasting my
fine, but
time.
let's not talk about what other books they're reading or what other movies they saw or what other thing is going on with their life. You don't need. You could talk about your kids and your wife and your dog after the game or before the game, but during the game, let's just play the game, regardless of your definition of the game.
Well,
that's the part of it is that literally everybody's got a completely different opinion on what that means. Some people, come to the game with preconceived notions that we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and everything else is in the way of each and everybody's individual preconceived notions. I think it's a bit late for me to start 5e. Never read a single Wizards of the Coast book, and I don't think I'm going to start. It doesn't. I think I could find, just bouncing from game to game for me would be easier than to try to, suddenly be, adept at running one of the biggest, splat book heaviest, content games ever.
You know what? You know what my mom said once? She says there's 2 things that you're good at, Victor. And she said it's golf and Dungeons and Dragons. And he said both of those are lifetime games. You'll be able to play those the rest of your life. You're not going to be playing football. You're not going to be playing baseball. You're not going to be playing basketball. But golf and Dungeons and Dragons, you'll be playing it for the rest of your life. And I sort of, agree with her. I can't think of another sport I would play for the rest of my life. So
yes, Squirrel. Playing in person is way different. You get more time because you've got more time, and there's less pressure. And people in person in the real world, in your neighborhood or town or whatever, you know them better in ways that you can't really know people online. Our online, relationships are still missing something. You know what I mean? That you can't get from playing online. And playing online is very focused and concentrated, and because of its limited time, unless you're Bruce and you can play 12 hours a day, you've got to cram a lot into a very small window, and hopefully it hits all the boxes for everybody or enough boxes for each player so that they do want to come back and they're not tempted to do anything else. How have you run Shadow Dark for that long? I thought it's only been out like a year and a half.
No, it's been out almost 2 years now, I think.
Okay, it's not like I'm running for kids. I'm 48 and the youngest at my table by a lot. Okay, yeah, I'm in a Shadow Dark game. It does a lot of things, but it's about the people that are in the game more than the mechanics. I don't even own the book. I've looked at the PDF like 4 times tops for about 8 minutes each. So it's not the mechanics for me when it comes to that, but being able to like plan a game, because I was thinking about you, Bo. It's like, you know what, I could see running another D&D game that's not my high seas adventure game. There's some things that I haven't done in good old fashioned D&D that I always wanted to do, but never had the opportunity to do. Maybe I could start something up, but then I start thinking, well, uh, is it worth it? Is it going to fall apart? Am I going to put in more work as a GM, putting together a world and all the other things that you got to do to run a game, other than just be human freaking random number generator and narrator of those results, which to me is absolutely heinous. I can't stand that idea. There's nothing in it for me. You guys do that. You find someone else to do that. I'll just roll up another fighter magic user and we're good. If I'm gonna put my creative energies into creating a game, I want to know that the players have at least put in, between all of them combined, the same amount of time and energy that I put into it. Otherwise, it to me it seems like it will fall apart, and I will have wasted my time, and the entirety of my work will have been for nothing. And my time is, as I get older, goes up in value, exponentially every day. So, what's the solution? Um, is it better vetting? Is it, the ultimate game that everybody's, hot to play? Is it, some other factor that is eluding me, at least right now, and maybe other folks as well, as to why they can't get their game to last more than 6 months. I when your game is going to only be X number of hours, you play differently. You don't make plans. You just, you know, not to say this, derogatorily, but you're okay. You're living in the moment, and whatever happens, you just deal with, and that's cool for up to a point. But what got me into the freaking hobby in the very first seconds of learning about the hobby was the upper level of play, building a castle, having people, that worked for you or whatever. You're the king, you're the lord, you're the wizard up in the tower, you're the master of the thieves guild, all of that, only to find out that's not really a thing. You're never going to do that. So just forget it. Nobody can handle it. Nobody knows how to run it. Nobody wants to be in it because of reasons. Well, then maybe I'm in the wrong freaking hobby. I want to do those things. I want to, even if I'm not the player, I still, want to vicariously, enjoy my players, attempt at being, the big bad, whatever it is at the top, or at least, the higher levels.
100%. And those are one of the pillars of the game as soon as it progressed past just being a war game.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed that those pillars have become eroded to the point now where it's just a war game again. They've cut out the planar play and alignment play and domain play, until now it's nothing more than, like you said, kick down the door, kill the monster, take the loot.
Oh yeah, there's no creativity because they did take all that stuff out. You've taken out.
Well, the players took it out though.
Well, I know, but
Wizards, all those. They're businesses, man. They're going to give the people what they want because they got to sell books.
Right. Mm-hmm. But in my game, I have certain rules. One of my rules is if you're an assassin, you don't say anything and you don't reveal your alignment to anybody. I mean, that's just part of the game. You just don't. And I've had some assassins in our group, and people didn't know it. Well, when they finally died, they figured it out. But I mean, just here it is. There's an assassin. He's posing as a fighter in the group the entire time, and it was part of the gameplay. I mean, players actually got into trying to deceive the other players around the table of what's
Yeah,
going
that sounds like a great way to get punched in the face. Just saying. No, I'm not even joking one bit. If I found that out in an in-person game, and it wouldn't be punching the player, I'd punch the DM. It's like, what the fuck do you think you're doing? You're getting a
What?
kick out of this shit? Fuck you.
It says it right in
You
the
know,
book.
we're here to play as a team. You
It
know what I
says it
mean?
right in the book.
Wait a minute. We're not. Who says anything about playing as a team?
I did.
You're playing as a
I'm
team.
inviting people into my house, right? The last thing I want is someone else, in my house, like they're under false pretenses. You know what I'm saying?
No, their characters are under false
Yeah,
pretenses.
No,
characters.
no. You're lying to their face, pretending to be there for a completely different reason.
We're all pretending. You're pretending to be a paladin. You're not really a paladin.
Right.
It's a little bit different. I think you know that.
No, I don't. I mean, it's play acting. We're all playing make believe.
Hey
And if
guys,
you're playing make believe as a dude, being another
Hey, what's up,
dude,
Lovebird?
pretending to be a dude, if you're Robert Downey Jr. in blackface, that's fine because you're just playing a game.
You're just all it is it says it in the book that you're not supposed to do it. I'm going with you know what I mean? I mean, in this class, you're trying not to.
It also says in the Dungeon Master's Guide that the DM's supposed to lie to you when you find a potion of poison, and that you're actively supposed to try to get the player to drink the potion so that they die. I can't think of a better way to get punched in the face at a table.
You know what I do? I say you need to identify it. That's all I say.
But even in that, it specifically, at the very least alludes to you're supposed to lie to your player, and that's one thing we can't
Okay,
have, right, Bloodwork?
in,
is it a
in
lie?
most in, in most systems, the player can have their character take a small sip, and then you can give them some hints about it tastes really bad, or it has it gives you a burning sensation or something. If they had tasted a potion of healing before, then you can say it tastes very similar to a potion that you've had before or whatever. You don't have to lie, but they also don't have to, take down the whole potion in order for them to have an idea of what it does.
Mm-hmm.
And the smarter you are, if you're, if the character, the smarter they are, they can roll that die and say, okay, I'm going to try and see it, identify it. You know what I mean? Sniffing, looking at the viscosity, stuff like that. They can say, this looks like a healing potion of healing or something. I mean, there's that factor too. But I mean, it could be a deception. You know what I mean?
Yeah, back in my AD&D campaign that Shadow was in, I kind of had almost like a color code system that if the players kind of remembered, there was oh, I remember all the healing potions are red, and they have this taste to them, and just use character experience. What the character actually experienced is something that now, 18 months later, the player might not allow for the characters to remember what character knowledge was over time. So I would give them a reminder. But for the most part, I don't recall any place where it said that you have to actively lie. I just, it was just you will not tell the player something that only the player would know. You know what I'm saying? You would couch everything in what the character had experienced.
Mm-hmm. someone joined but isn't in. Is that Dean?
I don't know. I can't see nothing.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
I
James.
tried
Come over in the private chat. There we go.
Hey, James.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's happening?
Before you were mentioning Shadow, you were talking about what has changed. Another thing that I think has changed, at least in my own experience, was that back when we were teenagers and late 70s, early 80s,
Hmm.
number one, we weren't only running one game system. I think back then, so many of us, most of us possibly, were running multiple game systems, and we also weren't the forever GMs back then. I had 3 different GMs at my table,
Hmm.
and we alternated. We
Maybe.
played 4 or 5 times a week. Now, AT&T might have been twice or 3 times a week, but the other 2 games were run by somebody else, different game system, different genre. And I think there's less of
I
that
think I'm
today
checking all
than there
those
was back
boxes right
then.
now. I read like right now. I'm in different games with different people as a player and as a DM, but
Yeah, but you're the same generation I'm talking about. You're
right.
our generation. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, I'm talking about going forward. What we can
Yeah.
do to make it so that uh, you know, besides having like the longest session zeros ever, which again people lie. Not going to mention any names, but I had a couple of people in a couple of games I ran a while ago, and they said they wanted X. But in practice, at the table, they didn't want that at all. They wanted absolutely sometimes none of a thing, and got visibly, uncomfortably upset when they weren't getting that. And I'm like, well, do I have to come up with like 100-point questionnaire to vet every player and then get signed in blood that they're going to agree to a minimum, sentence at my table of X number of months or years, or just say fuck that and just, accept the inevitable and basically just get the fuck out of the hobby because it's never going to happen again. Am I chasing a dream of the idea that I could be in a game that's going to last and be worth my time, whether as a player or as a DM, to continue enjoying the hobby that I love? Or are those days completely gone and I should just like find me a beach chair somewhere, in some little island and just wait for the inevitable?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I play so infrequently as a player. It's
Mhm.
just hard for me to, put myself into that, into that kind of a mindset. Like,
Well, even
I
as a
mean,
GM, if I'm like I said earlier, if I'm going to go to the trouble of more or less fix up a world, have a place for the game to take place, that has something of me, and I'm not just running somebody else's world, which bores the shit out of me because I could just read the book. Okay, cool. I imagined some stuff that was fun for a while. Let's do something else. I want to, either as a player or as a DM, know that there's going to be some substance to the situation, and then I can, at least hope for, the things that I'm wanting, which is, like high level play, domain play, at least, a steady stream of adventures to last, a certain amount of time.
Well,
Police reported ahead.
are you conflating a couple of different issues then, Shadow?
I don't know. Maybe.
I wonder if that, because the first thing you have to decide what is a DM, because it sounds like a DM to you might not be the same thing as a DM to Richard, might not be the same as a DM to me.
If you mean by world builder and want to do that, yes, absolutely. There's
Police reported ahead.
playing. You guys know
sorry
I
about
almost
that.
never run somebody else's IP. Almost never. Um, that to me that's like that's that guy's world. If you want to play in that world, that's cool. I get it. There are a few IPs I'd play in, but for the most part, no. I want to run my own world because I really love making new worlds. Fucking James. Um, and to me, that's the that's the joy is making a world and see other people enjoy it or hate it, as the case may be.
Right. But I mean, in terms of like active participation as a DM, because to me, a DM is a referee first.
Yeah. But in doing so, I mean, if you're just letting the dice do all the work, then you're an AI can do it better. Okay, straight up, an AI or strict 100% uncaring adherence to a set of rules, and it's always going to be rules as written, and in which case, anything else can do that better than me, because in creating a world, there are going to be situations and things that the players will not know or understand, but still exist the way they are, you know, written down in your notebook or what have you. You don't know that that's not really a mind flayer. It's actually, an aboleth illusion. Players don't know that, and you, as the GM, have to run that the way you think it should be run until the big reveal, if you will. If it's just uh, doing what you're told to do by the rules and the die rolls, I don't need to be there.
Now, I want to ask you
And I don't
something,
want to know that the
Shadow.
GM's doing that either.
Shadow, what are you looking for from domain play? And what does that look like at a game session? Like at the table, what does domain play look like?
Is my question to you yesterday?
Was it? I don't remember that.
No, to Richard. I asked Richard that question yesterday.
Okay, ideally, let's
About
say you
domain
got 4
play?
players.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, let's kind of spell it out. Ideally, to make it as simple as possible, you got a fighter, a cleric, a magic user, and a thief. They've all gotten to the point where they got, like, let's say they each got 100,000 gold in their bag of holding, and all their bills are paid. And over the course of 10 levels, they've been saving it up. And now the fighter, because he's a fighter, he got knighted or whatever, and given a stretch of land by the lord above him, and he can now start building his castle. So he starts hiring the men to build the castle. The wizard says, "Hey, can I build a tower on your land and be your court wizard?" And the priest says, "Yeah, I'll be your buddy
losing you.
mage. uh, I'll build the temple on the same land and bring more people in." And the thief says, "Don't mind me. I'm just going to set up a little hide a hole right over here, and I can be your spy or your guy who gets stuff done, off the books kind of thing." And the fighter's like, "Cool, I love this. Let's do this." And each player begins their stuff to make that happen. And let's say some time goes by and they get all the buildings built. They got all the people, the peasants, the little town growing around it. And then, every so often something happens where, it requires their direct involvement. They've got to maybe leave someone behind to watch over the kingdom as they go off and get revenge, or try to bring in the bad guy from a previous adventure, or there's smoke on the horizon. The volcano's starting to erupt. There's a dragon was spotted there. You send out some flunkies to go investigate. They don't come back. You're like, well, I can't keep throwing flunkies at it. Okay, let's saddle up, guys. We'll go check it out. Maybe we'll teleport real close, get there as quick as possible, see what's going on, deal with that, go back home if we're lucky. Various adventures like that, where you can still do, like, a high level dungeon, but you at the same time still have another interest, that being uh,
So the domain play is
your
not
budding kingdom.
happening. Yeah, so domain play is not happening at the table. It's happening in between sessions. It's happening in the background.
It could,
Like you're
or
not
I mean,
actually, you're not all.
there could be entire sessions where they.
Sounds like auto tune.
He's just bad. He's going down the country somewhere.
Sounds like auto tune.
Yeah, I can't hear you, Bloodworth. And we lost him.
Am I back in?
You're back in, yeah.
All
What's
right.
up, Jordan?
Yeah, I hit a little pocket. So, bottom line, if I don't know if you caught what I was saying, but I'll repeat
Not a
it.
word.
So, when you're sitting at the table, all right, and but you have 5 players that are all doing their, well, this is what, this is my time management, of my particular portion of the domain, all right, and here are my spreadsheets, and this is my on those things, connection. That's all something is done, not at game time, but in between.
It could
in my
be.
opinion, that's how.
There could be parts of sessions that are like a mix, like for whatever reason, players couldn't be on the phone and or Discord or whatever, passing back notes and stuff, making plans. There could be sessions where everybody gets together. It's like, hey, they spend maybe an hour or whatever, maybe even the whole freaking session of making plans about what they're going to do, so that the GM then has a clear cut idea of when they go into the dungeon or whatever, what he needs to, kind of do to populate it and make it ready for that particular adventure. I've had many games where, the players, make plans because in the real world, they just don't have the time, or they forget. As soon as they walk away from the table, they don't have the time to sit and spend 2 hours like coming up with their, the things that they're going to do. Game time is game time. When they're not in the game time, they're doing life things. And especially when we were younger,
Yeah.
it was always game time. If we're at the table, it's game time, and there was no, unless you count like this one guy I knew who would call me because he lived like 50 miles away, but he'd still show up every day. But he'd call me, after the games, like doing all that sort of stuff. But now, some people literally don't do anything except at the table. So if it's a planning session, so be it. They're still role playing in their head. They're still, making rolls and getting things done and seeing if this thing works or if this thing's available, etc. Or
You
like
could
you
go
said,
through a
they
session
could.
and only kill 2 things. I mean, that's what happened in our session last time. We went through a 5-hour session. 2 monsters died during the whole thing. 2.
Right.
So I mean, it was all exploration and stuff. I mean, it's just a camaraderie. You're there. It hasn't.
And exploration can literally, take place while the players can literally be exploring ideas and strategies while they're like sitting at the round table, of the fighter characters, dining hall. They're sitting there with their maps and their stuff, and they're, planning ahead as the game. That session was them doing all those things, and maybe they're still making rolls because they tell their vassal to go do this and send a message. Here's a bag of 50 gold. Go get this done. Here's a gem. Go give it to this noble. And see if we can bribe him here and there and things like that. It doesn't always have to be like I said, kick in the door, kill the monster, take their stuff onto the next room. That isn't all that play consists of at the table. I understand that ideally that's what most people want, but what most people want and what most people get aren't always the same thing.
I think that the Pendragon did domain play really well, because domain, if you're a lord and you're taking care, if you owe the king 10 nights and 10 barrels of gold every year for your taxes, then in the in the summertime, you're as the Lord, you're home, making sure that your fields are tilled and crops are in the ground. And then in the wintertime is the time that you go to war. Because you don't have to be at home, tilling your fields and collecting your taxes. That's all done. So in the wintertime, you get in your boat and you go to France and you lay siege to a city. If you're Henry V, just make sure you don't die of dysentery.
Right. But when you've got clerics, magic users, and thieves or assassins or things that are not knights, you've got completely different, goals. Your priest or your wizard could be doing some serious research, and then suddenly, oh, there's a dragon on the horizon, and they got to interrupt their damn research, or they say, "Yeah, I'm out this game, guys. I'm not giving up because if I do, I lose all that time. You're going to have to do it without me." That could be a thing. Your wizard's like, "Hey, I am in the middle of enchanting this great item, and if I don't touch it tomorrow as part of the rules, because that's part of the rules, and continue enchanting it, I'm done, and you're not going to get your whatever you asked me to build for you." So you've got different considerations in D&D versus Pendragon, but I do like the idea that there are systems out there that try to simulate that kind of play, because it, oh, sorry, I was reading the private chat. Because, like, for example, what's up, Owen? In Cold Iron and George. In most of you probably read at least one or more of the King Conan comic books, right?
Yeah.
I don't read comic books, so
Okay. Oh, you've at least heard of it, and you're probably going to go see the movie, right?
I'm going to go see Masters of the Universe. So
Okay. Well, moving right along. Let's just assume everybody said yes, anyways. In those stories, Conan did it all. He went on adventures because every 3 or 4 issues, I think it was contractually obligated to rescue his son or his wife from Thothamon or some demon or some such. And he left his kingdom in the capable hands of NPC number 37. And he went off on a horse or a flying steed to go try and rescue said child or wife or fight with whatever, which would be like the game time, and came back and everything was fine. Uh, you know, and it was quite enjoyable. And I want to see things like that, to where the players have NPCs that they actually give a crap about, and don't that are not just waiting for them to stab them in the back, because it's actually not going to happen, because that is in fact your wife and she does in fact love you. And your son isn't going to stab you in the back because he's your son. He's not freaking Mordred waiting for his time to stab you in the back and take over your kingdom. He's your character when the time is right. When you say, okay, I just want to play my son now. Okay, cool. All right. He was never going to stab you in the back. See, I told you. And have that, maybe even generational play. I've been in games like that. I've done it. I know it can be done, but it seems like, real life is making, certain kinds of gameplay just more or less obsolete.
I would say at a certain point when you've decided that your character is going to fully immerse themselves into domain play, that's the time to retire the character. The player still has control over the character. The character becomes an NPC in the world. All right. And every once in a while, the player can reach out to the DM and say, hey, you know what? I'd like for that character to be doing something that will impact the current crop of player characters that are at the table. Incorporate some kind of a story just to keep that character alive, even though we've moved on to a different set of characters. Domain play is for retirees. retiring adventurers. That's why
well,
Conan
here's the
never
thing.
retired from adventuring.
Well, here's the thing. Like, mind you, most of my stuff comes from AD&D, and I distinctly remember in the Dungeon Master's Guide, there being experience points, tables, and things for various character professions, classes that go way above ninth level. The magic user, his spell
Oh
table
yes,
goes
of
to 25th
course.
level.
But that's because there were adventures for going all the way up to level 18.
Right, but that becomes the
We talked
difficulty
about
because.
this. There were.
Good.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
No, when D&D when it becomes just about fighting the next bigger monster and the next bigger monster and the next bigger monster, and I'm 18th level now, I fight ancient red dragons instead of packs of kobolds. That's when the game becomes boring. If you're gonna have, if your character is gonna progress, then the story has to progress too. And so, as a DM, you have to find a way to make the world, and I didn't say story, to make the world interesting for the players at high levels. And there are ways to do that beyond just saying, now we're going to go out and fight. The dungeon just got deeper. I just discovered we're the 35th level below Castle Greyhawk. That's lame.
Or now you're going to fight armies of giants because they're the biggest monster with consistently large amounts of hit points.
We're going to fight Tiamat now.
Right. There are a lot of things.
I'm sorry, but managing a manor is more exciting, or managing a
well, I always envisioned a fantasy role-playing game. You're in the Grand Duchy of Karamikos. You're in the Keep on the Borderlands. Why is it the Borderlands? Because eventually the monsters expanded their domain into the world of humans. You, as the adventurers, are going to push back and reclaim that land. But eventually, the monsters will redouble their efforts and push back. The world breathes. It expands and contracts like a person. And that's where the domain play becomes interesting, because you're not just fighting the next monster. You've got all these things going on at once. And as a player and as a character, your perspective grows, and you see these things that you didn't notice before. And you're not just fighting a dragon now instead of a gnoll.
Well, that's why they created the series of adventure modules. It's like, the Keep on the Borderlands naturally rolls right into Against the Giants, which then rolls into the Vault of the Drow series, which then goes to tops off at a Queen of the Demon Web Pits. I forget which one the Slave Lords rolled into, but they were publishing these adventure series that were meant for mid to high level, and you progressed right from one into the next. So it was built in to AD&D First Edition that you would follow these. Later on they call them adventure paths, but you would follow along those sequences and carry you through the mid to high levels.
Just by fighting bigger monsters, though. That's, again, I don't want to just fight bigger monsters.
No, it's not bigger monsters. It's bigger stories. It's stories that are impacting a region. All right, Against the Giants is all about stopping an invasion of giants into Yeomanry, which out more, but it's into Yeomanry that there's going. And on the Borderlands, it was to keep on the borderlands of the Lord Till Mountain, or Lord Mill Mountains. All right, it was the borderlands of the giants and the people of Yeomanry.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the slave lords goes
I,
down with the sea princes. There, all of those things, and that really started with the salt marsh adventures. They got everything. They started
that was a
putting
good. That was a
out.
good adventure. The problem, before anybody else says is, unfortunately, is that all of what you just described, Bloodworth, is a big, gigantic freaking railroad, and there's a whole bunch of people that will do whatever they can to get the fuck off the railroad by any means necessary.
And then you, as the dungeon master, let those non-interacted events continue to progress forward. All right, where when the players will see that, hey, my characters chose not to do this. I'm not telling you you have to stick them on those lines,
That's true.
on those rail lines. I'm saying that yes, you can hop off the roller coaster ride anytime you like. However, that event is going to continue forward, and
Mm-hmm.
you either watch it happen, and go about your other series of adventures, which is perfectly fine, but just
Mm-hmm.
know that that is going to continue forward.
I like.
They were meant to allow for the players to choose which ones they were going to engage with, but you have to keep the world living and breathing by letting those events continue.
That's right.
Chris says something here that I can't believe makes me want to admit to something when I'm done reading. Domain level characters have enemies more terrible than monsters. They have to face politicians. I freaking love that,
Yep.
because when you get to that point, you've literally made arch enemies. I love that idea of there are people that you've been rubbing elbows with, or interacted with, that become more dangerous, more hated, more feared, or whatever than the lich down the road. You've got this politician that is getting in the way, or this wizard or this priest that is pushing against everything you've striven for all these years. And to agree with Connell, who I never agree with, sometimes humans, or in other cases, other demi-humans, can be the worst monster in the game. Thothamon, Yurkun from Elric, um, you know, Professor Moriarty, if you will. Those guys are way more scary and more meaningfully defeated than the ancient red dragon, guarding the holy sword, maybe. Depending on your frame of mind. I have played some NPC bad guys that people were literally like kind of bummed when they finally defeated it. It's like, oh man, that guy was great, man. I loved hating that guy. I just, doing my best, the Monarch impression. I hate that guy. I want to build those kinds of interactions and encounters and relationships, as irritating as they may be, versus the ogre chief, or the red dragon. Sure, the red dragon or the lich or the vampire can be those things as well, but sometimes when you kind of get to like the scouring of the Shire phase of your campaign, you find out that the worst guy, worse than Sauron, was Sauron, because he hit you in the nuts when you weren't looking. A wound that struck the Shire, the one place of all the whole world you wished would never see a cloudy day, and he came in and just was a big old asshole.
Oh, God, everybody runs their campaign a little differently. My campaign, totally random. The guys could leave the city, they walk into the woods, they roll a dragon. I say, roll an 8-sided die. It's an ancient dragon. You're screwed. You're dead. In the meantime, it could be a 10th level fighter walks in the world and he rolls a die and it's a goblin. and there's only 10 of them. You know, I mean, it's just totally random, and everybody's runs their game a different way. So, I mean, I don't do this level progression. Oh, your first level, we're never going to send you against a giant. No, it ain't happening. It's the wild. You are
Well, yeah, in wilderness encounters, that was a very distinct thing. In wilderness encounters, you could run into anything because it was completely random. But once you walked into what the dungeon, the dungeon that says third level dungeon on it, you have some right to expect that you're not going to be fighting vampires and liches in a third level dungeon. You know what I mean? That's just the way it was. The game was designed. That was like a fairness rule kind of built in. Now the DM could say, "Hey, that's a 10th level dungeon, or that's the home of the vampire," and your first level characters go, "Yeah, let's go there." Okay, well you're all going to die, but you don't tell them that. You just say, "Okay, that's what you chose." There should
Well,
be
you also hope for you can also hope for a favorable roll on the reaction table. You know, I mean, if you roll a 2, thank goodness that dragon's still not going to kill you because you rolled a 2 on the reaction table. You know, that's where that favorable randomness.
Also remember this too is when you're in these dungeons, they had corridors like in what was it, the Drow series, D1, 2, and 3. They had corridors going off into the Underdark that were not, you know what I mean? And if the players took that wrong turn, I don't care. You're falling off that 5 through 7 mark or whatever it was. You're off.
Right, but I mean,
encounter anything. You know what I'm saying? So
I suppose if you want to look at it that way, I think as a decent DM, I would give them some warning that hey, maybe they find a dragon's skull or something, letting them know that whatever lives down here eats dragons. You might not want to go down here. I'd give them a warning, and if they pressed on, you know what I mean. I'm not going to I'm not going to gotcha them because look, it's like this, man. When TPKs happen, they happen, and it's usually because of bad die rolls in combat. But if you just lead them on to a no-win situation, and they're going to die hours ahead of time, you might as well just shut the game down then and there. There's no chance because you're not going to give them a chance to survive. You're just going to lead them on to the freaking meat grinder. You might as well just pack it up there. Like, you guys all die. What? Well, yeah, if you keep going forward, you're dead. And close your books. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to be guilty of that.
There's always a possibility of winning. It's always a dice roll. There's always
there are unwinnable situations because the hit matrices can tell you can never hit. 20 doesn't mean you hit unless you change the rules.
Well, I have changed the rule in my game.
Okay, in which case you might as well throw out the hit matrices because math doesn't mean anything, or it doesn't mean the same thing to you as it does to the book. Like a 15th level fighter doesn't have to roll a hit an armor class 10. He needs a -6. What does that mean?
Well,
mathematically, what does that mean? It means if he rolls a 1, he still hits.
Right.
Okay. Well, if you're not going to do that, then don't use that. Make up your own and go where 1 is always a miss all the way across the board and 20 is a hit all the way across the board. That's a different.
Well, that's what it is in my game. That is in my game. You roll
right.
1.
And that's totally fine. I know lots of games that do that. Palladium and other games like that have mathematical rules built in. But when you're playing AD&D specifically, if you are a 15th level fighter or whatever it is, and you've got a rock and you throw it at a first level nobody in no armor class 10, you don't even need to look at the die roll because you can't get a -6. You can't accrue -6 to make it where a 1 is a miss. It's like you just automatically hit. Same thing with the upper ends. You're a first level fighter, and to hit armor class 10, you need like a 21, and you have no pluses. That means you can't hit.
Shadow, though, hold on. Let's back up a second here. Is there a way to accrue a -6 in AD&D? Think about it.
Maybe if you were blind and your strength was low enough from, say, being touched by a shadow or some other effects.
All
that
right.
could-
Well, let's just say it's well, okay. Yeah, let's say you're maimed somehow and you're fighting in the dark. I mean, you would have, you know what I mean?
-4. You get
You know,
-4 for being blind, and then you
Yeah.
could come up with another 2. But what are the odds of what you're talking about? You're talking
negative two
millions to
scores.
one.
You can have a
You're
negative
talking
two
millions
score.
to one odds, buddy.
Well,
That all those circumstances line up without DM fiat, that those circumstances all line up to give that 15th level fighter a -6 to hit on a peasant.
you never know. That's the thing, though, Shadow. You could be.
I would
You
be
could be.
willing to bet my life that those odds are never going to come up in the way you just described them.
Well, maybe we
Versus,
got to pose that question out to the audience. Anybody have a -6 to hit? Anybody over in the chat had a -6 or better to hit something? I mean, just somebody might have done it before.
Yeah, and I really don't mind having the mechanical option. It makes sense to have those options there in case something outrageous does happen. But when I hear hoofs, I expect horses, not zebras.
Mhm, mhm.
But so yeah, there's always that chance.
Mhm.
Right.
Hey, just for the record, a first or second level fighter needs a 25 to hit armor class -10. Not saying that's just is equally
Okay,
unlikely.
Yeah, that's impossible.
but a first level character fighting a -10, he's coming from behind. The shield's gone, so that you're at -8, and it's
No,
from
no, 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 no,
behind.
no, no, no. No, now you're changing the armor class. If we're gonna have this discussion, you got to stick with the -10 as it stands. You're lowering the armor class to make your argument. That's not the same argument. If he's got a -10, even in the worst
So
situation,
frontal assault only.
no. Well, kind of. I mean, how do you
You
get a
have
-10
to.
armor?
There's no other way.
Exactly my point. Why is it even listed then? If you see what I'm saying, if something's got a legit -10 for whatever reason, like Omen says, you could go -5 for long range, -4 for invisibility. Well, that would be the other way around. He'd get a +4 if he was invisible. If you're invisible, you don't get a bonus to hit. But like, say, same thing with long range. You've got to come up with pluses to the fighter, not negatives to the guy's armor class, which is already established at -10, to prove the point that there are situations where you cannot win. If it's got -10, you could, for some reason, be playing that guy who's got an 18 double odd strength at first level, that 1 in a million character. Okay, you got that. Maybe you are also for because the DM lets you specialize at first level. You got another +1, and maybe you picked up a +1 weapon at first level. Okay, then you could, but you'd still need to roll that 20. You see what I'm saying? There
Yeah.
are no win situations.
Well,
Unfortunately,
there should be, because that's the whole point of. If I wanted to always have a fair shake, I would play fifth edition. Right? I want to play games that are not fair, because then it relies upon player knowledge to get me out of a scrape, not stacking modifiers.
and it's entirely feasible for them, to pull victory out of the jaws of death. We want to see that, but sometimes,
Yeah, run away.
and even then, sometimes that doesn't mean you're going to live.
No,
If the opponent's got a faster movement rate and it's hungry and it wants to eat you or it wants revenge, it's going to chase you down to the edge of the earth. And not only that, now it's getting a plus to hit you from behind because you've run, you've dropped your shield and your weapon because you're scared, and it's you're dead. You don't get the roll. You're just dead because I rolled a hit and I did, freaking 37 points of damage to your 8 hit point character that's running away. It's over.
Why do I want to play a game that promises amazing rewards if there's not an equal chance of defeat?
Absolutely. Well, because some people have gotten to the point in life where they expect, like a video game. That's just, I think video games have a huge and have had a huge impact where they expect to be able to win if they just reset everything or just keep doing things. There's no death. So they could just keep, you know, respawning. If you remember some of the good old games in the old days, Might and Magic and Bard's Tale, your character could die and your party could maybe try to bring you back, but sometimes your character died and he stayed dead. That's just the way it is. And sometimes in like Might and Magic, for example, you try to resurrect the character and it would just say Ash. You can't even bring him back anymore, That's the way it should be, There should be consequences, like you said, Bo. If you're going after the freaking brass ring, well, sometimes you fall off that merry-go-round and you break your freaking collarbone and you're not getting back on the merry-go-round maybe ever, because you're traumatized or because the merry-go-round is gone. It went to the next town. You're never going to see it again.
So, yeah, I understand. Everybody's got their way of DMing and stuff like that. And there's negatives and everything else. I mean, if you're getting swarm attacked by first level characters or first level monsters or one hit die monsters, and there's 8 or 10 of them. I mean, it even shows in the book that, you're going to lose certain advantages as a fighter that, with weapons and everything else. I mean, who says a goblin didn't pick up a first level or a +1 sword somewhere, a dagger or something? He doesn't know. He doesn't care. He's using it on you. All right. So, I mean, he's attacking you from the back. He's got a +1 dagger. He scores a 20. Guess what? He got you. I mean, it's just going to happen. I mean, there is that.
I'd like to see that Dino Laser, just out of curiosity. Well, actually, I have it, but I thought you said 3E. My eyes are blurry. Yeah, I think, like I was saying earlier, part of being a good DM is creating the world, and oftentimes that means when you're creating the dungeon that you create all of the, like you stock the room. Okay, well, that there's 18 kobolds in here, and one of them's got a +1 dagger. Maybe he's now the big leader guy, and everybody's afraid of him because he's got the magic dagger. So the other kobolds do what he says, and he says swarm. They swarm the fighter, and they may even be like doing the 3 kobolds in a trench coat routine where they're on each other's shoulders and they can still swing with like one arm. They need a 20 to hit, so it doesn't matter. That they're only one hit die monsters. Whatever your armor class is, they still need a 20. Well, I'm rolling 18 20-sided die in this round. Hey, what do you know? I actually rolled 3 20s. I've done that before, especially when you're rolling large handfuls of 20-sided dice. You're going to get some hits. It's just
and that's the thing. I mean, I'll tell you what, in my Dungeon Master bag, I have 20-sided dice. In another bag I have in there, I got another 30. I mean, so if we want to go combat, I'll just,
I literally had to buy this bag of 20-sided dice for the Savage Sword game that Bo was in because there was combat coming, and I'm like, I have 3 20-sided dice to my name. I better get some 20-sided dice. I did, and I keep them in that bag because that's only for that kind of a situation. I normally in my regular game, that's not going to happen. They're doing other things or whatever. It all depends. Just trying to see if like I said earlier, if the kind of stuff that I'm interested in is even feasible.
You know what?
In the current environment,
Anything's feasible. It's just that
How likely is it?
going to be popular. You know what I mean? You can make a game any way you want to. It's just, can you get people to play? You know?
That's true.
Mhm.
And again, that was my point regarding the shift, the cultural shift in role playing games. There's really no point in complaining a lot about it because it's a matter of you're trying to. It's almost like a language barrier.
Right?
Well,
But
I've always lived by the
like
adage:
you
the
guys,
squeaky wheel gets the grease. If everybody just accepts a thing, okay, then it doesn't change, and everybody does the new thing. Well, if you complain or ask questions or whatever you want to call it, eventually you might find a small minority of people that want to do the same thing or think the same way or want to experience the same thing in whatever it is, literally anything in life. There may be people out there that still want to play the Dukes of Hazzard game, and if you look far and wide enough and ask enough questions, you might find those four people and somehow get them together to play the Dukes of Hazzard game. Okay,
Sure.
and crazy example off the top of my head.
Right. But it's just, and it's also the DM too. I mean, I've been at enough conventions that I've sat in on some games and I'm just like, oh God, there's no way this guy should be a DM. There's just no, you know what I mean? He's just that brutally bad that it's just like, no, I can't sit here anymore. I've watched him a game because the guy was that bad. And it was just,
I suppose
you know,
I haven't had that happen recently. There were a couple. I don't want to name names or anything like that, because
you know what I'm saying?
absolutely, and it could just be a bad day, a bad night, a bad whatever. It doesn't mean that they're always like that, because sometimes the best of us have off days. Some of the worst of us have freaking phenomenal, amazing days as well. It just really depends on uh, blind luck, I guess.
Well, I mean, there's just there's some really great DMs, and then there's some bad ones. I mean, it's just nothing's always equal and the same. You pick your choice, who you want to play with, and you have some fun. You know what I mean?
That's the goal, right?
Right?
I mean that
Wait,
is
now our goal is to have fun. Wait a minute.
easy there, Shauner.
And what's his bucket? Shauner's heir apparent. Max Blowman.
Oh, I yeah.
Isn't that what his stream is called? Something about we're here to have fun, and it's all very snarky and better be careful otherwise they'll make a video about you.
Yeah, I don't know. The only thing I've seen lately from Max is the Banana Report.
Oh, is he still doing that?
Oh yeah. God bless him for it. I showed my wife the Banana Report, and she's like, "What is this?" I'm like, "It's a friend of mine." She's like, "What?" Hey, he does this every day. And she's like, "Really? I don't get it." Okay, never mind. It's
Yeah, the only one I ever see is his stream about when all the 4D guys get together and yell at clouds.
Crispy and those guys.
Yeah.
No, they kind of want a lot of the same things you do. So
right, but you get what did you say? I catch more flies with honey than vinegar.
Absolutely.
And the thing where I disagree with them is the collaborative world building. You don't get to decide that the door is blue instead of green.
Although
I get to decide if the world is blue or green.
I got to admit, though, when Omen and George and I did that for Traveler before we started playing the game, we built a universe or a solar system that we will be playing again. We built it up from like the 1970s into the future that we were going to play the Traveler game in. But once we started playing, everything was, DM. I'm now the GM, and like one time, a player wanted to get something off a table in a break room, and I'm like, that's not there, but there are, these are there instead. He's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you don't get to decide. I'm telling you, there's straws on the table. There's not forks. For whatever reason, because that's just the way I pictured it. I pictured the room. What would be in the break room? The forks and knives and stuff like that would probably be over there, and the napkins would be over here. And I described it. Yeah, you don't get to decide. I'll tell you what's there, and if it's what you're looking for, cool. If it's not, you can keep looking. It's that simple.
Sure.
Like you said, you can't pull the sword off the wall and the shield if it's not there, because I said it's there. You don't get to just say, "Hey, it's there." Oh, lucky me. No, we're not having that. But it sounds cool. I don't care. It's not there. It's not that cool. This place isn't that cool. It doesn't have swords and shields hanging on the wall for you to just grab willy nilly. I mean, someone's going to poke somebody's eye out.
There you're describing a very cinematic game where the players can. It's a story. That's storytelling. And the irony is that's a storytelling game.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're watching Whose Line Is It Anyway? When Colin says, "I pull the sword off the wall," and Wayne Brady says, "Oh, to nose." That's what you're doing at that point.
And if that's what everybody signs up for, there ain't nothing wrong with that. But if it's not what is on the menu that particular game night, then that's not on the menu. And just work with what you got. You might want steak and lobster that night, but all we can afford is pizza. Sorry, pal. Unless you're paying for it.
When I make my worlds and stuff like that, I make a general outline and then I do it. Everything's off the cuff and the fly. But I'm going on. Oh, you see this, you see that. You know what I mean? And I make a little notation on this grid square. There's this. You know what I mean? And then if they ever want to go back, they go back. I don't make huge deviations. You know what I mean? Like try to give this all expansive city of Greyhawk. Every building's named, and you know what I mean, and all that nonsense.
If that works for you, that's great. And for a lot of people, I know that's exactly the way it's done. But when, when you've been to literally, I could describe 100 different worlds that I've played in that were that, right? And I want a little more. A little more work put into it. Otherwise, why should I care? You know what I mean? If it's going to be that minimalistic in design, then my output is also going to be as minimalistic and literally slowly, probably.
It's up to how creative the DM is too. I mean, you could say, okay, I'm walking down the street and I want to go into the next tavern. Okay, it's called the Salty Dog, I tell you. And walking up to the door, you see two half orcs standing there as bouncers. Looking into this bar, because the swinging doors are a little off kilter, this place is not going to be fun. Or it might be fun, just depending on what you're looking for. You know what I mean? I mean, it's gonna be a rough and tumble place. And
right off the bat, very nice improv. I like that. But then you need to write that shit down, just in case, or try to remember it.
I remember it.
Or hope somebody else does, because what I find is when I realize I'm in a certain kind of, and welcome to the show, Omen, a certain kind of, I'm just going to call it half-assery. No offense, because I'm talking about other people. If I notice that, then I know that I can bend credibility or reasonable behavior to a certain point that makes no sense, except that, for lack of a better term, I want to win. And by that means I want to survive and get all the cool shit with as little hit point loss as possible.
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want that. I want to, not necessarily be in a constant state of alertness and worry, because that's not healthy. But I want to be able to, feel that there are consequences, and I can't, manipulate the situation because I know the GM's style so well, and that they're not going to be doing, certain things. I want to, I want to not know what's around the next corner, or what to expect.
I think from my standpoint is I don't mind if players do the collaborative part as long as I have the final say. And then the other part that comes into it is it offloads a lot of work. So if you say you're from such and such place, I said, okay, you build that out, and then we'll work together and figure out what works, and then I take over from there. So it doesn't mean you know everything, even though you help build it out, and I'll modify it and twist it to whatever I'm going there. The other part is, what's that?
I like to work it where I fit the characters into it. You know what I'm saying? How do I say this? There's certain players that I want to lead off in a different direction. I'll make a church somewhere, like, oh, the priests go over to the church, or the party separates and it turns into this, all right, here we go. And the gangs come out, or a gang comes out and fights them and stuff like that. I try to make it immersive enough that everybody's doing something at the same time.
No. I think we're talking about two different things. I'm talking about this is offline when I'm talking more for collaborative. And what I'm talking about is, hey, you're a cleric of such and such. Why don't you? And they want to do over and say, hey, we have holy days and all this. I'm like, well, go fill that out. And if I think it's, and then I'll go over and say, hey, that looks good, and I might modify it some. And that's what I'm referring to is you have then the players are invested in it as well, because they're helping create the world. But for me, I don't have to worry about it, and then I write it down and I put it in there, and it starts becoming of the lore of the world. Right. That's what I'm referring to.
Take care, Alfred.
But they'll make requests to me, like saying, I want to go see the sage, or I want to go see the church, or I want to do this. So I start putting those places inside the world. So it's like,
absolutely.
Well, you do both.
There's nothing wrong with that. Because your idea of the town, especially like if you're using like one of those maps of like Lankmar or something, where it's just this big sprawling town. It doesn't have to be like, a metropolis or whatever, but there's plenty of room for things. And like, I think it was you, Omen, who said, instead of going to, it was actually, I think it was Seskolkowski, maybe, I don't remember, but the player was like going to every freaking store looking for something, but he didn't tell the GM what he was looking for. So he would just keep rolling up stores when the player just had to say, I'm just looking for the Fletcher. Oh, too bad you don't have a Fletcher. Oh, why didn't you just say that? I would have rolled and, okay, there's a Fletcher. It doesn't, no harm, no foul. It's not going to ruin the story. If anything, you just, saved a bunch of wasted time, disappointment, and ridiculousness by just going, yeah, okay, sure, there's a Fletcher. Instead of, okay, well, now we got to go back to the previous town because, there's no Fletcher. And that can, again, waste a lot of time. And then lo and behold, so-and-so died on the road to the Fletcher because they got some bad die rolls. You know what I mean? And you were out of arrows.
Yeah.
It's well, I mean, part of it is, and that was Seth Skorkowski, but the other part is now you're making me figure out what every building in a town, let's say,
you don't need to know.
Well,
you don't need to know.
But my point is yeah, but me as a DM, if you're checking out every building, now I have to create something for every part of those buildings, and you're creating more work for me instead of just saying, hey, by the way, I'll mark on the map that this is the place you want to go to. Hey, go down such and such lane, do this, and that's basically. Now you're making me build every town out rather than just highlighting the important parts of said town.
But
and you're missing a real opportunity to actually role play that. All it takes is the character to go out to the street corner and ask a kid, hey, where's the Boyer? Where's the Fletcher? Where's the Stringfellow? And you actually get to interact with the world.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
No,
right. And I think that the players should be doing that.
You know what I do? Every building that they don't want to go to is residents. So it's like, oh no, you pass them 3 blocks back. You know what I mean? I'll roll a die. It's like you're northwest 5 blocks. So 5 blocks away, this is where this is. And I'll just be like,
Whoa, hold down the fort for me. I gotta take care of something real quick.
Well, I think we're all saying the same thing. But the point being is, but if the player says, "Oh, I want to go check out this building. Oh, I want to go check out this building," now I have to start creating what each one is. And whereas, like you said, hey, I can now put the building where I want and then tell them how to get there if they ask, and a random, passerby. Hey, do you familiar with this? Oh yeah, if you just go down this, you go down 2 roads and you go over here, past the bakery. Oh, okay, that's great. That makes it much easier than me trying to figure out what's in each building. And for all of us that have ever played on computer games, you check out every building that you pass by as a player, and you're just like, oh my god, and if the people don't want to do it, they make it so that building's inaccessible. Well, I'm not trying to do that as a GM. I'm trying to say, okay, I'm going to have a living, breathing world where it may be important, but most players don't care. They don't have to stop by every hovel.
In my world, I just say it's a residence, and most of the people I play with just we'll pass. We'll just keep going. You know what I mean? They'd have no want
well,
to go in.
And then my point is if they come from different regions, guess what? You build out that region. You build out their customs. You build out that region. You build out that city. You help do this. Tell me who your major players are, because I don't have to fill that out. And if the players do it, then I'm going to modify whatever they give me. One is they've invested time and effort into their world, so now they feel more connected to it. But they also understand that I'm going to twist and manipulate it to my desires as well. And so then that's where we're talking about collaborative aspect. I don't have that offloads tons of work from me, and I'm putting on the players to do some of the heavy lifting. So I think it works all ways. What I don't want is if I tell them something very specific and they're just pulling stuff out, I'm like, okay, what are you actually looking for? I don't have to describe everything in elaborate detail, where it's going to take, anyone remember playing the first edition modules where they had the boxed text? And while I enjoyed reading the boxed text, do you remember all your players' eyes glazing over when you would read the, 4 paragraphs of boxed text? Which, to be fair, with VTTs, it's a lot easier because you can just put a journal, and if they want to read it, they can read it, and if they don't, they don't. I just do a simple description and say, oh, there's more description in the room if you want to read it in a journal. Let's be honest. As a GM, the important part is timekeeping and making sure that whatever happens in your world, you actually write it down. And like, oh, okay, if I put the Fletcher here or the Bower or whatever, I have to, and they come back to the town, I need to make sure I have that map that shows where he is. And so then you start building out your world that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you can do stuff on the fly within reason. But I think sometimes it also means that you have to do a lot more bookkeeping as well.
I don't know about your bookkeeping, but my bookkeeping is very simple. It's just quick notes. It's just like the horse and the ox and rough bar, and that's all I put. And then because the clientele is always changing, the owners can change and everything else, in a matter of weeks. It can, if they leave town and they come back, the horse and the ox can be burned to the ground. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, that's how I run things. So
well, see, I look at it a couple differently, which is okay, the horse and the ox, the clientele. I start adding stuff in. I'm going to put the owner there, and then if I want to change it or something, then that gives the story. Oh, what happened? Well, such and such owner was run out because they did this.
25% pay.
And if you start getting more in there, I mean, just talking about stuff, if we're discussing this, is now you can start. Now they start having connections to those NPCs because they keep seeing them over and over again because they keep going to the same bar, things like that. And that's what I mean by it. And, it's not that hard to write in a journal. Now, again, are you writing hand notes? Are you doing it electronically? I do a lot of stuff electronically because it saves me a lot of time, and I'm going to use Foundry in particular. I also have the ability to use Foundry to hide things from players and reveal as I was going along. So I can write all my notes in there and only reveal certain sections to the players, and they never know what they can't see because they don't have GM access. So I can put in whole paragraphs in the same journal, and only certain paragraphs can they see. And I'm like, well, that works out pretty well. And so then that allows me to build out the world.
I understand you're very technologically savvy, but don't give my young looks here a never mind, because technologically I don't bring a tablet. I don't bring anything to the game session. I got pen and paper like old school. It's like, I go home and I use my computer sometimes to draw the world up and stuff, but no, I'm saying paper, so.
Well, even for pen and paper, because my handwriting's so bad, I will still type out notes later on, and then that finishes stuff out for me.
I let the players remember stuff, and if they don't remember what's going on in the world, hey, I'm not here to rehash everything for you. If you remember, this is like school. When we were back in 1970s, and you're writing down notes, in 80s, you're writing down notes because the teacher's saying.
Yeah, I can't do that. I look at it like this: you and your character are not the same thing. Okay, and there are certain things your character would never forget. You know what I mean? So I
guess we have two different type of players. I got 2 players in my game, 3 players actually in my game that write notes. They write a lot of notes. I got another player who's got a great memory, and he remembers everything, and he never writes anything. And then I got a couple players that are like, oh, yeah, I don't remember that.
But see,
it's a delicate balancing act.
Well, no. Here's my concern, because I've had more fights over this, especially when I was a kid. Nowadays, I just kind of let it blow off. I mean, I'll argue for a little bit, but I'm not going to derail the whole game. But I had so many games when I was a child that we completely derailed it because we were arguing about misconceptions and things like that, and it didn't provide a lot of fun. And so now, as I get older, I'm like, hey, this is what I wrote down. This is what is there. And if you have players that take notes, then guess what? Give me your notes when you're done, organize them, and I'll put them up. Again, that comes down to everyone acts like the DM has to do all the work. If I'm doing this and they're writing great notes, give me your notes at the end. I don't care if I take a picture of it. I'll write it up in a Word document, and then I don't have to mess with it as much. Because you only have so much bandwidth as a GM. And if the players are offloading all that bandwidth, you have more time to actually focus on the game and what's going on, rather than trying to say, was this right? I don't remember, arguments. So, I don't view it as adversarial like it used to be when I was a child. But I'm not saying one way or the other, but it helps out a lot. Like, hey, guys, where were we last? Could someone have writing up the note? I know, as much as we knock shadows sometimes, Armstrong writes up the recap, which makes a huge difference for all of us. Makes it for the players and the GM. And so when he does that, it's like, oh, let's go back and see what happened. And then, as you go through, one is, GM, you tend to forget a lot of stuff that happened too. And now I'm like, oh, I can go read this and make it the whole story.
I literally forgot that I used to do recaps. It's like I got so busy with so many other things that I forgot that I was doing recaps, and so Armstrong just picked up the torch for me, and it's actually I think in a lot of ways better because it's from a player perspective. And I always worried, like, did I forget so and so did this great thing or whatever, and I would feel bad. It's like, oh shit, I forgot to mention this or that, and having a player do that. That's why I like those games that, like, especially like the Red Room games where players get bonuses for doing those things that help out the DM. Like there's literally in some rules, like if a player brings extra snacks, they get a bonus. If they do the journal, bonus. If they do artwork, they get a bonus. If they do mapping, they get a bonus. Uh, you know, make it. Like you said, not the adversarial thing. Make it. It's supposed to be a fun time. And if your buddy
You go with
freaking
that F word again.
what?
You said there you go with that F word again.
I know I'm just dropping F bombs left and right today. I'm sorry, folks.
What you said? What word would you say?
Fun.
I didn't. You know what? I don't take care if you say the F word. I'm more offended if you start preaching stuff to me. So you break out the Bible and start doing that stuff, and I'll be like, nah, Shadow, I gotta go.
Dude,
I
come
try
on.
to keep that. I try to keep that to a minimum, but at the same time, there are certain people that aren't in my group because of reasons, and I have the right to cultivate through the vetting process, which I'm trying to get better at, to make sure I have just the right group of people at my table, at my game, that I would invite into my house. I would invite into my life. I will, you know, uh, talk about my son or their kids or what's going on in their life. Because I do care. There are a lot of environments out there where they don't. They don't want to know. They don't care. They're there to get their game on, and everything else is none of your damn business. I'm like, that's fine, but that's not how I want to spend my time anymore. I want to have a better connection with my players and my friends, because otherwise I'm just doing something that I should get paid for, and I'm not. Right?
Guess. I mean, there's rules. Not to drift. I mean, the topic has drifted so far, but I definitely want to keep convention rules for people until I know them very, very well. And even then, I would like to keep convention rules at least during gameplay so that we can keep the game focused. When we're done, and if you want to talk maybe politics or religion or whatever after I've known you for a long time, fine, whatever. But certainly at the beginning, I don't want to talk politics or religion with anybody. It's divisive.
Yeah. Well,
Right, but I'd rather know ahead of time that so and so isn't going to be a good fit because we might talk about something or make certain kinds of jokes
Uh,
a year from now, and find out that the whole time they're like, oh geez, they're a bunch of these guys. Well, then get the fuck out. Yeah, we're a bunch of those guys. You don't like that? Then maybe this ain't the table for you. Because eventually, in a perfect world, we're gonna go and break bread somewhere together, or we're gonna, meet in person and hey, how's the wife and kids, stuff like that, the economy sucks or whatever, and be able to, be more than just, the equivalent of guys on a volleyball team and nothing else about them. You know what I mean? Ideally for me, but
depends on why you're here. Well, everybody.
to make friends. If all I wanted to do was play a game, I'd probably just stick with video games. Maybe even play online video games where none of that shit matters ever, ever, ever. But when I see their face, on a regular basis,
religion and politics come up more in online video games than they do in person, and than they do in in-person games. Because everyone is talking about your mom and what.
Well, why they would do that. My mom's been dead for 20 years, but
no, that just makes it even better. Because then it's necrophilia.
I always bring snacks to my online games. Yeah, me too.
Didn't somebody ever rule against that? no snacks and online games because was that
Max
Shawner?
Leow. No, it's Max Leow. He can't stand hearing people make mouth noises when they're gaming, and I know how that is at my family dinner table. Sometimes I have to leave because if you eat with your mouth open, I'm going to laugh when you choke and just watch you die.
If you eat with you mean chew with your mouth open?
Yeah. Chew with your mouth
Because last I checked, I had to eat with my mouth open.
Well, I mean, not when you're chewing, but yeah, or talk with your mouth full. Oh, I'm just waiting for you to freaking start, choking, because that's what happens. That's how people choke 90% of the time is because they had food in their mouth and they decided to talk anyways. And yeah, I don't know the Heimlich maneuver. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, it sucks. Yeah, I'll see you at the funeral.
Yeah. Well, I have what do you call it? An autoimmune condition that precludes me from eating in public anyway. So I don't eat in public. Yeah. I don't eat. I don't even like eating in front of my family because me eating is always a possibility that I'll die at the dinner table.
That sucks, man.
Yeah, it's called eosinophilic esophagitis. It's pretty bad. So,
it sounds, because I don't think I could ever repronounce that if I had to.
Yeah. Basically, it just means that I'm allergic to a lot of food, and it causes my throat to swell up.
Oh.
And then when my throat swells up, then I'm gonna start choking, and then yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
So no Cheetos at my game table. Hard rule.
No Cheetos at my game table. No Cheetos if I'm lending you my books.
There's always food at my game table. If somebody brings in pretzels or popcorn or whatever, it's like, whatever, I don't care.
Don't hide it, divide it. As long as you share, right?
I don't.
Steven, that's my alter ego there. No.
I did always made that joke years ago about what made in-person gaming better, because I want to taste the dice and smell the people at the table and hear the pizza.
No, Jackie knows better. This is type sport. No, it's other folks that, for whatever reason, just like.
Yikes! You only have like two other people in the family, so we know what you're talking about.
No. When we have like big get-togethers.
Oh, okay.
And they don't know. And I've tried to explain to my wife, could you it's like, no, not doing that. Not going to say it. Not going to do it. Learn Spanish. I'm like, okay, fine. I hope you learn the Heimlich maneuver, because that could be rectified. Because growing up, my mom had that problem. Never learned either, and it was traumatic, to say the least. When like 6 and 7 year old me couldn't do anything about it, and as I grew up and learned what was happening, it was like, well, you're a freaking grown ass woman. You should know better. I mean, I learned it from someone. I learned it from you. Don't do that. Just wait. I expect potluck meals at my game table. Yes, we know, Owen. You are famous for that, which I think is actually kind of part of the thing.
I think Seth Skorkowski just did a video on that pretty recently about how if you're going to have food at the table, just don't excuse yourself to get up and cook an 8-course meal there, Julia Child.
Right.
Make it simple.
Well, yes and no. I mean, if everybody's, it's like the Super Bowl. If you're gonna have a bunch of people over for an extended period of time, and you want to take an hour or even a 2-hour break, because
100% take a break.
Because you still got 4 hours after the meal. Awesome. again, if that's what you're signing up for, everybody gets notification. This is what we're doing this Saturday. Be there, be square. Cool. You could write up the itinerary, engraved invitations, the whole bit. And the people that show up, they've been informed. Now, when do we get to do? When do we get together in person? There's always food. I miss the 10-hour, maybe even 12-hour sessions with food breaks, extra time for blabbery. We actually get a lot done in game too. Yeah. Um, oh, thanks, Mac. I appreciate that. Um, I it is for actual research because I pay attention and I am curious to see uh, are these things that I'd like possible? Am I hoping for the impossible? Um, would I be better off spending my time doing other things, or understand that I've outgrown the hobby? Because I've done it more than anybody I know. I literally was blessed with the ability to get more time in, and maybe because of that, too much of a good thing. Maybe I need to take a break for a year, and disappear and go find myself, stupid shit like that. I don't know yet. I'm hoping that that there is still some of those things out there available. Oh, okay, this touch screen is retarded. What is Paul saying here? Depends on. Oh, dang it. Sorry, Paul. Uh, as I've mentioned before, when the Decker took his turn in Shadowrun, we'd fire up the grill and make lunch. Just the pace of the game. Okay, I got you. Because he was going to be, monopolizing the time, I'm guessing. Biggest difference about us though is we were social in the real sense. And that is, part of like I said, I almost want to write an online etiquette book for online gaming because it is vastly different. The difference is most RPG books are written for in person. They're not written for online. And what is can we agree on certain things online versus in the at the table there are certain things you would never do, but I see those things occasionally in online games, um, because you can get away with it. The keyboard warrior thing, people, arguing with the GM, ruining the entire session, literally saying or typing things you would never say in person because you would, quite possibly get your ass kicked, and not just by the GM, but by the entire player. When the cops came, we're like, huh? We don't know who you're talking about. They never showed up, kind of thing, or whatever, just other things, to make it, a better experience for everybody. Yeah, we talked on the phone, we played in person. I had this one guy, he went up to college to Frisco when, that year, and he still called me every freaking day. I mean, like every freaking day about questions about the game that he would come back for, on breaks, and still it was still important, to that particular player, uh, knowing full well that the game was still going on, even though they weren't able to attend and they couldn't play by phone because that was in the day of long distance charges and things like that. And when they came back, we jumped right back into his character. Having been away doing whatever. I don't even remember. It's been so long. He actually passed away at the ripe old age of 32. If you can imagine that.
Yeah. Certainly.
But see, Omen, you had to put your money where your mouth was in person. You know what I mean? If you said the wrong thing, you knew, you know, it could come to blows. Online, people, act differently, and will argue a point, far more than they would in person, I think. Because, literally they could feel the freaking eye lasers, beaming down on the jackass who's trying to argue for a plus freaking one, versus, online they'll go on for freaking an hour, and then when it's over, still making snide comments. Well, things would be different if I'd have got the plus one. Yeah, well, you didn't. Shut the fuck up. Roll your saving throw. Right? Exactly. It is. I've literally, like, every player I played with but one has passed away, and a couple of them in the same year, which was last year. So I've got one of my original, not my original, but my last in the game group is still alive, and we still talk, and he's still like, when are we going to do this? When are we going to do that? I'm like, dude, you can join my games online all the freaking times. Like, dude, I got 7 kids. That ain't happening. you know. So, just trying to, figure out what is and what isn't possible, because D&D isn't the only game. Fantasy role playing isn't the only game that I'm interested in, and I find that a lot of other games kind of have built in that you're not going to be playing a 5-year campaign with this game. You know what I mean? Maybe there are people out there that they are the exception. Stop killing my players. Dude, I'm an insurance salesman, and I'm the beneficiary. So, for example, like Top Secret. If I got invited to or started one up, I would have no illusions of it lasting. What are you doing? What is that noise? You maniac!
I don't know what he's doing over there.
He's probably going. There was like just massive amount of rustling noises.
Right. Sounds like he's fooling around with a toolbox or something.
It could be. Tell him to man up. Nice, Mac. A lot of high-level autistic people playing these days. They have no idea what social cue is, I suppose. But I am gonna, continue. Hold on a second.
Nice sigh. The hell, it's lunchtime. All right. I thought usually it ends these things at 12 o'clock. No?
Well. Oh, what else should we discuss about here?
Well, like I said, I got on after his video this morning where he talked about your highest level character, and I think that there are just a lot of reasons why people don't play to high levels.
Well, I've got my own thing about high level characters. Is just that you get up to 8th, 9th level, you start getting more things you have to do. You're not kids in the playground anymore. You got followers, you got a castle, you got this and that. Sure, you're able to play, and once in a while we'll break out a game of those guys coming around. But I always think a game is a lot better or more fun if you're playing those first, second, third level characters. There's a greater chance of death, and I can bring in some other, how do I want to say this? I can use my creative juices a little bit better, because those 8th, 9th, and 10th level characters, if I spring a trap, most likely they're not going to die. I mean, it is, for the DM, it just starts to get to be more paperwork for me, is what I'd say.
Well, I was saying, I think that for me personally, I don't think I've ever played an honest, 100% honest game, at least of a level-based game. I played skill-based games for long term, but for a level-based, class-based game, I don't think I ever played a really 100% honest one until this year. And so the last level-based, level-based, class-based game I played, it imploded at second level. So I can honestly say that my highest level character is second level. So let's freaking play. It's freaking stupid. But, what do I know?
Well,
usually I got enough players around my table, they can see every roll of mine. So I just whatever.
But kids play different. Kids cheat.
I know.
When you played when you were 13, you cheated, and if you say you didn't, you're a damned liar.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Oh, we did horrible.
You fudge dice. You fudge dice all the time when you were 12, and you don't now because you're more interested in having that gritty, raw experience, and you don't care if your character dies.
Real quick, Squirrel. When I talk about high level, I think I've kind of also implied greater stakes. If it's not just a matter of hit points and chances to hit and saving throws and things like that, but greater stakes in the world. With the talk of domain play, there should be, I mean, it would be hard to imagine, most games, like skill based games, where you start out as the Duke or a Prince or a police commissioner. You know what I mean? Traveler is one of the few exceptions where I could see that because it's literally baked into the system, and one of the reasons I love that system is because you can you can do that. You can roll up a Duke. If you got a 15 Soch, fuck it, hey, you're the Duke. Yeah, the Duke. Or you could be, former police commissioner and things like that. But starting out in most other games, it's like you're the new farm boy or whatever, and you gotta, play it out as a newbie, which I, as a 50-year-old guy, almost 60, I find it harder and harder to want to be the teenager unless, I'm talking about the End of Innocence game, which you're supposed to be that. And because of its system and things going on, it is actually appealing to a point. But the idea of playing an 18-year-old first level fighter has no appeal whatsoever. I know right now, any first level fighter, like a real first level fighter, I kick the snot out of it. Okay.
Right.
In the real world.
Page 82, Unearthed Arcana. They have the social table right here, where you can roll it up as part of your AD&D game, and you can come out a Prince. You roll double odds, you're part of the ruling class. I mean,
okay, but again, that is like a like a 1 in 100 chances. So you're gonna let me roll up 100 characters till I get what I want? No,
it's not that.
Which means it's effectively meaningless. Well, I'm talking about I want to run this character. I get this idea for a character, and he has all these cool things, but he also has some bad things. Can I play it? Oh no, because you're more powerful than a first level character. That's what I'm not a fan of as much as I used to be because I've done it. I've run 100 different fighters. One of them even with like a 97 Soch. So cool. But if I want to say, hey, I want to make this guy. Most people are going to go, no, man.
Okay, we're losing people here.
Yeah, I got to duck out. I have an appointment at 12:30.
All right, man. I will see you later, man. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh man.
Yeah, as a child, 12, 13, yeah, we all did. Bo's not wrong. Sometimes you start low level because those low levels are to learn the system and characters. I suppose. I suppose depends on this the game and the system and the genre, etc. But like, what do you call it? Like, there are a bunch of games out there. Like for example, Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
You start out at a certain point, and there's no reason your professor, or whatever character should be so crappy at these things, but yet in the golden years of his life, because he's now a player character, his stuff starts going up after the course of 3 years. That's kind of not how humans work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We if anything, we start our skill levels start declining, even though we may be using them because of other things diminishing. Uh, you know, you may, if you don't practice that skill, it goes down. If you get old past a certain point, you can no longer, bench press what you used to. Therefore, your stats are going down.
Right. Well, and that's built into AD&D. I mean, all that stuff is there. I mean, it's just how much DMs are wanting to keep that timeline and know that they're keeping the time and everything else in their campaigns, and how the ages of the characters. I mean, I got to admire these guys that can keep a 30-year campaign going, and they've got all the notes from HE double hockey sticks and how old their characters are, and if they're aging out or they're dying or whatever. I mean, there's some admiration there for me. I mean, but to me, I just can't do it. You know what I mean? I got other things to worry about in my life than to figure out. Oh, your character is 69 years old. Is he going to die this year? Roll a percentage die.
Well, if you're playing AD&D, the DM's supposed to actually roll that at the beginning of the character generation and know the day of your death, unless something happens sooner.
Yeah. Well,
which I think to me is ridiculous. Because then suddenly, no matter what you do, you're gonna die at 47 because the dice said so. No, I'm in perfect health,
what?
and I'm wearing a ring of regeneration. You bastard!
You shadow. Then you got to look at it and go, but there's a potion of longevity, and there's potion of vitality, and there's potion of this, and a potion of that, and there's this spell and that spell. So it really doesn't mean anything. They can live forever, basically. You know what I'm saying?
Yes and no. It depends on the GM. The GM could be a stickler for that rule. I'm just using the worst case examples, of course. As always.
Right.
Other than Sean, I don't know anybody who goes out of their way to play rules as written when it comes to AD&D. Yours truly included. There are a whole lot of things that for whatever reason makes sense to be differently than the way Gary Gygax wrote it down. Back in the day. Things change. I'm certain, 100% certain, if he were to go over, if he were alive today and rewrote the book, knowing what he knows now or knew then, whatever, it would be a different book. So, overcome, adapt, do whatever works best for your game, your table, your friends, your players. And hopefully, you'll get to continue playing this great game, this great hobby that we've all enjoyed. Potion of Viagra.
Potion of Viagra.
That we've all enjoyed for a good long time, and hopefully we'll all have many years of gaming together. There's a whole lot of people in the chat right now. I can't wait to sit down at a table with and play, shake hands with, have a meal and a beer afterwards. Even though I don't drink, I would make an exception for you guys. Tenkar actually owes me a beer. I owe him a burger. Fair's fair. One of these days we'll get to do that. I just don't know when and where. If the norms have the date of your death, the norms, nothing can change it. that is a very valid way of looking at it, but at the same time, like I said, what if you're wearing a ring of regeneration? Oh, you had a heart attack. Well, then my heart should repair itself. I'm wearing a ring of regeneration. Piss off. Nope. It's your death date. What do you mean it's my death date? Well, I rolled a bit for. I don't care. I'm wearing a ring of regeneration. Yeah. And it's not that vampiric kind. It's the good kind. Therefore, whatever you're thinking, it should heal.
Yeah,
Leave me
my
alone.
potion of healing got me, or extra healing should take care of that.
Yeah, like I was saying with the wheelchair video,
Yeah.
there should be no wheelchair characters beyond a certain point in your most basic D&D game. Someone should be able to come along, cure disease, or restore the hit points, or something to get you up on your feet again.
I know. So this is the first time I heard about wheelchairs in Dungeons and Dragons. I just said, how's this going to work out? Who's carrying up this wheelchair up a set of stairs or down a stairs? Or let's just say you're going down into the sewers. How is this going to work out? They're going to be running, you know what I mean?
Oh
They're
my
going
God,
to
that's
be
such a
this
good
high
point.
and shit the whole time, or what? I mean, come on, I mean, there's situations that it's like, okay, the players are going to fly to a location. Who's bringing the wheelchair along, and how much does it weigh? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, it's wood. It doesn't weigh that much.
Oh yeah.
You ever
Bullshit.
lifted one of them fucking things I have 10,000
Bullshit.
times or more?
Whose power are they putting it on? Show me the spells and everything else that you're going to have for the motive power for that wheelchair. You know what I mean? Show me.
Mhm.
Show me.
Because both my parents were in wheelchairs. I literally, as a 7-year-old boy, on occasion, and by occasion I mean anytime we went anywhere, I would have to lift one of them into the trunk of our what the hell kind of car we had. We had a not an El Camino,
they got
an Impala, a Chevy Impala. Okay, I had to lift that freaking thing up, 7 years old, and put it in the trunk. Okay, right. They're not light. At the time, maybe they're lighter now. I'm sure they are. But
they got carbon fiber ones. They've got all kinds of them now. I've seen them.
Right, but in a D&D world, they'd be made out of wood like they were in the old days,
or iron,
and no rubber on the wheels. So going down a ramp, no. Going up a ramp, someone was pushing you, which meant
ice on ice. What good is that going to do you? I mean, there's so many impossibilities, and then there's no motive power besides their own arms. You know what I mean? Oh, okay. Fireball into the group. Why don't we save on that wheelchair? Let's see what happens. You're in a burning chair, or
that's so fucked up. That is so fucked up because you can't even say I try to dodge. Yeah, you ain't dodging shit.
Yeah,
you're right. You're as a matter of fact, the lich, or the goblin wizard or whatever, I made you center mass.
Right. I'm
you get a
in a wheelchair
-5.
and hit by a ball of lightning. Okay, now it's an electric chair. I mean, come on.
That's fucked up, man. That's fucked up. Or an underwater adventure? No shit, right? Okay, today's adventure, the good ship such and such is going to start diving for lost treasure. Well, you can watch.
Yeah. Let's see here. You're trying to dodge the wervins, and the wervins pick you up and toss you in a lake or something. I mean,
Anyways, moving along, we beat that horse to death.
Oh God, it's just the impossibilities of it all. Ramps are not ADA compliant. I don't think in the 1100s, 9 to 1100s, basically, they were thinking much about ADA. You know what I mean?
No.
I did it, and I just want to say this, and I did a Google search, or not a Google search, but I did an AI search on this, and it was pretty gruesome for anybody that was disabled back then. And a lot of it was, if you were on the battlefield and your back was severed or anything else, a lot of the warriors and stuff just wanted a coup de grace done on themselves, because they knew what their life was going to be like, and families didn't even want them anymore. I mean, they were basically, a lot of them were homeless and living on the streets and stuff like that, and it was coup de grace, and it was just, you know what I mean? It was nothing to it. So, I mean, if they were mobile,
what's up, Mark?
That was one thing. You know what I mean?
Master Blaster. A friend of mine actually worked on that movie. Um, yeah, it's just again trying to put the wrong parts of modern society and life into our games.
Right.
Now don't get me wrong, because there are a whole bunch of genres where it would be perfectly fine. The whole Ironside thing, Professor X. Nobody batted an eye about any of that. Okay, and that was fine.
In a sci-fi game, I wouldn't bat an eye at it. You know what I mean? I mean,
Mhm.
I can understand having
Top Secret. You could even have it in Top Secret. You could
right.
have it in anything after Boot Hill. Superheroes, spies, sci-fi, cyberpunk, which would make no sense, but whatever. There's a whole bunch of things. Where that would be fine.
Right.
But fantasy, it's just not the place for that. It's also not the place for a bunch of other things that didn't exist back then for reasons. I'm not going to go
Right.
into them. But it just wouldn't be a thing. And if you try to shove that in to the wrong world or the wrong table, you'll find yourself getting shoved out the door.
Right.
So read the room. Come on, folks.
Right.
It's not that hard.
You could have now. Hold on here. We can back up just a little bit. You could be on a spaceship that flies to a planet with dragons and everything else. Fine, but where are you going to charge that stuff? You know what I mean? Or do you have a lifetime battery underneath?
Nuclear power battery. Even then, you get a flat tire. Those things are not meant for lack of a better word, off-roading. Okay.
Right.
Most players want to re-roll after getting any kind of permanent injury. I say stick them in the chair. Yeah, there comes a point where it's time to make up a new character.
Right.
And that's part of what baffles me. Sort of going back to high level, back in the day, the idea of starting a new game or a new campaign was just like, no, fuck you. I want to keep playing this character until I can't stand my own character anymore. Was literally the mentality of the old days, right? It's like,
Right.
no, don't bring another game to the table. Don't talk about another game. We are playing these characters because we're all like 23rd level and we want to get to 30th, or whatever. We just want to keep playing these characters, especially, back in the day. If it was like your first character and you got lucky enough to be like 9th level, it's like, yeah, no, I want to keep playing this character. I don't want to learn a new character. I know this character. It's comfortable. I know all his equipment. I know all his abilities. I want to keep playing it. And, that makes perfect sense. And not that's not my particular motivation. It's to be able to do the things that haven't been done before so many, many times before.
Right.
That's why I don't throw kobolds, orcs, and goblins in my D&D world. They never fought them. They're never gonna. They just don't exist. I'm bored. There's nothing you could tell me about a kobold, goblin, or orc that's going to make me go, oh, yeah, I'm bringing them back. Nothing.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing about kobold those in my game. They've got some intelligence. I mean, just use a little bit of it. You know what I mean? I mean, just
right. But they're. I'd rather throw Grimlocks at the party.
Oh yeah, I mean Grimlocks are nasty, but I mean I'm just saying.
But how often do you actually run into them though? My point is the novelty of a new thing versus the same old thing, which I've done 100 times.
Well, in my game, it's totally random. So I run into Grimlocks, I run into all that stuff. So I mean, it just happens in mine. But I mean, I run into creatures. My players run into creatures that are just like, oh crap, like, and I'll make up creatures. I mean,
yeah, but that Paul, as funny as that is, that's literally as a GM, that's cheating.
Well, no, because Gary did it. And that's how you got the monster manual.
No. Let me rephrase that so you understand where I'm coming from. If I start the game table, it's Saturday morning, I go in my head, I'm going to kill all of you motherfuckers. You've just begun cheating. You've just begun cheating.
I give my players a fighting chance.
Right. As soon as you say I'm going to do this, because of reasons that are not in game, and even if they are in game to a certain extent, you've taken the part of game out of it, into a punishment session, a revenge session.
Right.
You're not gaming anymore. You're just, you're doing something that's not good, and you should find and seek help immediately. Maybe
well,
I don't know, maybe find Jesus or something. I don't know. You've taken it out of.
I got one that I sprung on my characters the other day. Very rare. First thing first is very rare, and they managed to get through it. They managed to get through the thing, but it's a nasty creature, and they pretty much figured it out pretty quickly that this female doppelganger type creature was bad news, and so they managed to escape from the situation. They didn't kill her, but I mean she's still out there, which sort of is gonna haunt them later.
Well, that's one of the neat things about it, right? Is that not the us versus you versus them, but the fact that you've got a group of people working together to what do you call it? They've worked together and solved the challenge.
Right.
The sum of the being greater than the sum of the parts kind of thing. That's freaking awesome. I love that. That's why I still enjoy being a DM is coming up with something and then finding and well, they could do this, or they could do that, or they could do that, but then they come and do the other thing that I wasn't even thinking about. I forgot something, or they just came up with some weird ass solution. I'm like, fucking cool, right on, guys. You did the thing. Yes, it was done by the Gary. I have divine precedence, and now random murder hobo. Your bullshit character dies at level 29 and a half. Just because someone did it doesn't mean it's right. Otherwise we wouldn't all be here because we'd all be dead. Because somebody else would have killed us in our sleep or otherwise, or we would have never been born. Blah 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 blah. Yeah. We have come a long way since the 70s when we were starting this hobby, etc. And it still blows me away, how many things have been influenced by this hobby without people knowing the origin of the ideas. It's still awesome after all these years. Just trying to keep it awesome for the next decade or so, however long, until I'm at the senior center and I forgot everything and wonder what the hell these books are in my collection.
Let me address Paul over here. Paul, I don't know. I was a good friend of Ernie and Gygax, and he was telling me stories, and these are other stories people have told, and about Jim Ward's Ward, the Starship Warden, and Gary Gygax one day, this whole party got teleported into the Warden, and all new monsters, and Jim Ward was running it, and computers doing stuff, so their players didn't know shit in their high level, and basically it ended up being a TPK. And you know what? Gary was pushing the bounds. Gary tried to push the bounds so that he could make a better game for us all. And that's what you should be doing, and every DM should do, is push the bounds a little bit to make a better game for everybody. So
absolutely.
I don't see anything wrong with introducing new monsters. I mean, we got 3 monster manuals. We got, for AD&D, we got the Monster Manual, Monster Manual 2, we got the Fiend Folio. And then, if you looked in Dragon Magazine, they put out Shadow Dragons and other stuff they were testing out on us. We would open a book and go, look at that monster, and then try to incorporate somewhere. So,
I'm just going to say, excuse me.
It's going to happen, and especially if you have different worlds. I mean, Greyhawk's Greyhawk, and if you have what was the one for Dragonlance? You had the Dragonlance one where the vampires were a little bit different, and dragons were a little bit different, and I can't remember them all because I'm such a Greyhawk guy. But anyways, if you look in the books, and especially the the 3-ring binder ones, you can see where Spelljammer had different monsters and Dragonlance had different monsters, and all these worlds had those different monsters.
Absolutely.
And it was purposeful. Gary tried to push the limits to make you push the limits. Because I mean, every time you saw a zombie, everybody we got to do this, this, and this to kill a zombie, right? But if it was a vampire, you had to do this, this, and this. Oh shit, that's an Eastern vampire now, or Oriental vampire.
I remember that.
Ogre mage and the ogre. I mean, there were two different things. He was pushing the limits so that you guys wouldn't be able to keep all that information in your head about those monsters. You know what I mean? And that's why, like at my game table, I've totally banned the Monster Manual, Monster Manual 2, and the Fiend Folio. Nope. Don't put them. You don't get them on the table. It's all by your memory. You don't get you don't get that stuff at my table. So
I took it a step further, as Owen will attest to. I changed everything in all those books a long time ago. Yeah. So go ahead, break out your Monster Manual. You might be right. You might be wrong. I'd rather you didn't, because it's just going to slow the game, but I can't stop them. If so-and-so's got their Monster Manual down here and I can't see it, I don't fucking care. Just because it says it's this or that in the book, they know that doesn't mean shit.
They learned their lesson one day when they were fighting. I think it was ogres or something, ogre magi, and they were like, "Oh, is there reading it?" And I'm just like,
"Yeah, exactly, Paul. You got to mix it up." That's why Arduin was such a fucking awesome thing back in the day for me, because I had these other books. As a 14-year-old kid, I didn't know all the stuff I know now. But it helped me like come up with new ideas and realize that, whatever I wanted was just a pen and paper, and some time away from making a new creation that might live, in their memories, forever. That time they ran into the giant brain worm, they still talk about that, or one guy does. Everybody else is, no longer with us. But, the ability to just make shit up, provided you do it the right way, which is, for the most part before the game or after the game. Changing monsters in mid combat is akin to cheating. You don't have to write it down before the game, but if you say in your head, okay, this monster's actually got this ability, and then you play from that point on, because it doesn't matter if you write it down. You go, look, I wrote it down. It's like they don't care. They're gonna trust you that that's just the way it is, kind of thing. But of course, in mid combat, you go, okay, well, I wrote down he had 37 hit points, but I want this battle to go a little longer. I'm just gonna add 40 more hit points. Like, right, that's not really right. Well, but I mean,
what I did, these guys were playing like Ogre Magi and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, I see a Monster Manual on the table, so I didn't say anything. And I was just like, you see 5, you see a mist drifting into your positions. What's going on? And 5 Ogre Magi's jump out, come out, rematerialize, and then they attack the group. And what the hell? There's only supposed to be 3 of them here. Well, now there's 6. I mean,
right? Yeah. As soon as they start spouting that shit, they're supposed to be. No, there's not.
Yeah.
This is no. Those are all recommendations.
Yeah.
I'll once again refer you to the old afterword in my Dungeon Master's Guide and yours. And at some point I'm going to have that tattooed on my arm or my back. The afterword and the succubus on the back of the book. It's like, it says right here, but yeah. So what do you got going on this weekend before we wrap up?
I'm gonna run out and see my dad over in Wisconsin, and then I
hope he's okay.
Yeah, the old man is made his annual pilgrimage out of the deep south, and so I'll just go over there, see what he's up to, and make sure he isn't doing anything crazy. He lost his wife here. I think it was about 2 months now. Just gonna make sure.
When you say his wife, I assume that's not your mother.
No.
Okay. Otherwise, that would be a weird way to frame it. You know what I mean?
Right. That's why
just clarifying.
That's why I said it in that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, just.
I mean, she was a nice woman. I'm not gonna, I won't disparage her like that, but she passed on from brain cancer, and so
anything to do with the brain, man. That's like, it seems like for us, I can see for a lot of people, well, it would really be nothing, no big, loss. Sorry, but for us, gamers, we use that part of us so much. Uh, that it's like a fate worse than death. When I found out about my grandmother when she was, coming down with Alzheimer's and didn't recognize anybody, I'm like, how do you deal with that? They don't know who you are. You don't, and there's nothing you can do to make them remember who you are. And it's like, like quite literally like a sadistic, cruel, lobotomy that, what are you supposed to do? Because, that somewhere, or at least I do, somewhere, they're still around, they're still somewhere, they still exist in their entirety, whether it's in heaven or whatever you want to look at it, so you still got to, be a certain way to them. You still got to take care of them and stuff. You can't just go, oh, they don't remember me, F them,
Right.
No, because then when you bump into them in heaven, it's like, why were you such a shit to me, when I forgot who you were, I changed your diapers, I nursed you, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't know who I was, so you didn't know, and I know there are people that literally like think that way. It's like, well, there's somebody else's problem now. They don't know who I am. Why should I care? Well,
Right.
because you're a human being.
I've seen a lot of that. I've seen that happen a ton of times. They just shove the grandparents or whatever in the old folks' home and just walk away. I don't have to see them again. I got all their power of attorney. I've got all this, and you know what I mean. They just treat them like complete garbage.
Real quick, Chris asks before we go, has anyone ever played or known anyone who actually played where the DM keeps all your character sheets and makes all the rolls and just keeps asking the player what they are doing? I both played in and done it, and I don't recommend it. But like once or twice in your life to say that you've done it, because it's two different things at the same time. It's trying to be a role playing game, but it's also a mystery game of who the fuck are you and why you should care. You know what I mean? Because there comes a point. It was like, well, if I didn't make up the character, which is one of the reasons why I hate pre-gens in most circumstances. There's a few exceptions that work really, really well, but that's why they're the exception. It's like, why do I care? Oh, because that's what we're doing here. Yeah, I'm gonna watch TV and stay home tonight. You guys go do that weird experimental, avant-garde game and find out who am I. Am I the clown? Am I the GI Joe in the bin, or am I the hobo? From the Twilight Zone. Where they're the action figures in the trash can. Remember that one?
Yeah.
I hated that one. After I saw it the first time, I'm like, oh god, this is awful. God, I hate this. This is retarded even. But it was the 1950s. What are you going to do? It's like because if you know anything, from before you play the character, the amnesiac or whatever, then that ruins it. And if you happen to get, you find out you're the hobo or you're the the such and such character, it's like, well, that's clever, and I appreciate the effort, but I would never play this character in any other circumstance except that I got freaking suckered into playing this game. I'm out. I don't like this guy. I don't want to play this character. There's nothing, that interests me. Maybe somebody wants to swap characters with me. You can play the the amnesiac, accountant or whatever it is I'm playing.
Mm-hmm. Well, Shadow, you've been on here for almost 3 hours now.
Appreciate it, everybody who came in.
Yep.
Played along.
I will see you later, senor.
Have yourself a great weekend. Maybe see you
too.
Monday or sooner.
Bye-bye.
Who knows? Take care, man.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Excuse me. I'm dying here, so it's like a good time to say adios to everybody. Have a great weekend. Love you guys. I will see you Saturday night with some sort of paint and chill live stream. Have a great weekend. Happy trails.